All-Star game, All-Star Monday. In his last chance to win the home run contest, he hit 3. He beat Mark McGwire by 1. 17 home runs in that contest between two great bats right there, Bonds and McGwire. As for Piazza, he waited until Tuesday, went 2 for 3, including an all-star shot to be remembered, and he won the MVP. Joe Morgan joins me here. Joe, and those two guys, we see two of the great bats of all time in this game.
You're right, and they're completely different. Mike Piazza generates a lot of strength, and he has great plate coverage. And he hits in the pitch inside, he hits it out. Outside, he can hit the ball over the right field wall. He takes this pitch here and drives it straight away center field. Bonds, on the other hand, uses quickness to be able to drive the ball out of the ballpark. He's not as strong as Piazza is, but they're very similar in that you have to pitch both of them inside. If you get the ball out over the plate to either one of them, they will hurt you.
Joe, we've had a very late change. I mean, we're talking about within the matter of minutes. Tom Candiotti's not going to start for the Dodgers tonight. Chan-Ho Park will. Candiotti's got a bad elbow that just sprung up on him. William Van Landingham for the Giants. What do we see?
Well, with Van Landingham, that's the problem with the Giants. They expected him to be a 15-game winner. He has been struggling. The difference between these two ball clubs, the Giants hope Van Landingham can keep them in the ball game. The Dodgers know whoever they send out there will keep them in. That's the difference.
So the Dodgers trying to build on that lead in first place while the Giants are trying to catch up with them. Mike Piazza will be out there. Settle back, relax. We got one for you. The ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week is brought to you by Pep Boys. 26,000 items at the guaranteed lowest price. Tires and service too. Everything but gas. Coming up, it's the Giants with their slugging duo of Barry Bonds and Matt Williams taking on the Dodgers and the All-Star MVP Mike Piazza. It's the ESPN Sunday Night Game of the Week. Just a beautiful night here at Dodger Stadium. Lots of sunshine at sunset time here in the West Coast. Going to be about an 80-degree evening. Dusty Baker brings his club in here with a chance to even up this series as they lost the first two games before coming back with the win last night, but they are struggling offensively. 8th in the National League runs per game, home runs. They are 4th overall, but it has been a very long month. So Dusty Baker hopes his San Francisco Giants can come in and do what they need to do here. There's the lineup for them tonight. They've got some youngsters in there. Bernard will be leading it off. He'll be in center field. Sean Dunston, one of the few hot hitters they've had at shortstop. Matt Williams at third base, followed by Barry Bonds in the cleanup holes. You see last night, Williams had his first home run in his last 37 at-bats for this team. That's a long drought for a power hitter as he is. It'll be Stan Javier in right field. Dave McCarty makes the start at first base. Robbie Thompson struggling mightily offensively at second base. Tom Lankin will be doing the catching, and William Van Landingham, a right-hander, will make the start for the San Francisco Giants. And the pitcher that they are going to face tonight is the surprise starter here tonight. You take a look outside here of Chavez Ravine and all the beautiful hills that surround this park. The San Francisco Giants lost the opener here 8-3 as the Dodgers pounded out 15 hits. The Giants picked up only 4 Friday night. Los Angeles the 6-1 win, and then yesterday the shutout. Sean Estes coming on to make his first start for San Francisco this season, called up. What a job he did holding the Dodgers to just 4 hits. Both teams were singing his praises after that game, and the Giants kind of got out of that funk a little bit with the 13 hits. And not expecting to be there, Joe Morgan, Chan-Ho Park.
Well, Chan-Ho Park is happy, though, because he has been wanting to get more starts, and he's capable. I mean, he throws the ball very hard. The only problem Chan-Ho Park has is throwing strikes. He will strike out a lot of hitters, but if they're patient, he will also walk a lot. You see 46 bases on balls in only 67 innings. He has a lot of wild streaks. He will be going along throwing very well, and all of a sudden, he cannot throw strikes. And let's take a look at the Dodger defense, highlighted here by Greg Gagne, who is a guy that's tried to shore up their defense. There's the errors that he has so far this season, and they had 90 in 95. They had 39 errors, so he has made a difference, although he's been on the disabled list, but he's a very good shortstop.
And the concerns, of course, continue as all of us and everybody around baseball and elsewhere extends their best to Tommy Lasorda in his recovery from the heart attack. He's chafing at the bit to get back. Bill Russell, 8-8, is the interim manager, the former great shortstop here for the Los Angeles Dodgers, who has seemingly, Joe, been in the been in the chain. He's been at AAA minor league managing here on and off with Tommy for a number of seasons. Fred Claire's made no announcement, nor I asked Bill before the game, has Fred said anything to you about the long term? And he said no, and I don't expect him to.
Right. I mean, Fred said they have made no commitment not only to Bill Russell, but not to anyone else as well. So, but make no mistake about it, the Dodgers have been making plans to replace Lasorda. Not immediately or not in the short term, but they have been making plans all right along. They know he can't manage forever.
And the question of whether or not Tommy can get back this year is up in the air. He wants to. Whether his doctors really want to let him remains to be seen. We are ready to go. Game 4 of this 4-game set concluding here. Arvin Bernard will be leading it off. Bernard coming on to play in center field for this team after the injury to Glenn Allen Hill took him out of there with a fractured wrist. And in all honesty, the numbers that this young man has put up have not been what they had hoped for, really, and he is still a prospect for him. Chan Ho Park, the starter, has made 7 starts, 3-2 as a starter, with a 2.31 earned run average. Chan Ho Park did not get much time here to think about this, which sometimes works out best.
You're right. Sometimes the guy just goes out and reacts. If he has time to think about each hitter overnight, he may try to be a little bit too careful.
Tom Candiotti was fine before the game, was out there taking his early batting practice, and I talked with him, and he felt fine. But then when he went to the bullpen to throw, the elbow acted up on him, decided he couldn't go, and Chan Ho Park quickly got up, went down to the bullpen about 10 minutes before 5, started taking the warm-ups. Bernard up on the bat, takes the breaking ball outside from Chan Ho Park. He's batting .254 here in the opportunities that he has had as a starter. Trying to get people on base has been a problem for both these teams throughout the course of this season. Neither's had a great on-base percentage, and both have been able to use the long ball to some degree. That one blooped out to left center field. It'll fall in for a base hit. Chad Fonville over to get it. No, Bernard leads it off with a base hit off Chan Ho Park. Well, the Giants get their leadoff man on.
Well, this is a fastball, and it's up, and it moves out over the plate. They wanted the ball to be inside, but it moved a little bit out over the plate. And as you mentioned, he blooped it. He really didn't hit it hard, but he found the space in left center field. And the Giants have their leadoff hitter on.
Giants getting out of a 7-game losing streak last night, and also a 12-game losing streak on the road, which was a Giant record. They have won only 3 of their last 20 games. And one of the only offensive catalysts they have had in that span is this man. Sean Dunston putting up some very big numbers, a .307 batting average, a step-off throw over by Chan Ho Park.
Well, the great thing about Sean Dunston, not only has he played well, but he's been a very positive influence in the Giants clubhouse. They are very, very happy with Sean Dunston.
That's got some speed. In for 13 in stolen bases, so Park will keep an eye on him over there.
And the fact that with Lasorda here, the Dodgers had not thrown out very many base runners. Piazza does not release the ball very quickly. He has not had much success throwing out base runners. And if you watch Chan Ho Park, he has a very slow delivery to the plate anyway. So not going to give Piazza very much of a chance to throw Bernard out.
A lot of base running has been done. Mike Piazza only 10% effective in throwing out base runners, which is a very low number. He's 10 for 99 in that department. See, the major league average is 26%. He's only 10%.
But you can't blame that entirely on him, Gary. No. That's also, the process of the pitching staff holding runners on a little bit better, and they haven't done that.
That's been true around baseball this season. That stolen base percentage, as far as catchers are concerned, has gone down. It was about 31% last year and down to 25% this year.
And I also contribute that a little bit to the fact that guys are hitting so many home runs that they're throwing more breaking balls, more change-ups in situations, and that allows the base stealer to get a better jump.
Look at this jump. Took off too soon. Coverage is not going to be in time. Gagne could not get over there in time as Chan Ho Park did not realize Bernard was going until he was halfway down to second base, and then the Dodgers didn't have anyone there to cover when he turned around.
And Piazza had no chance on that one.
No, he wasn't even involved.
So they did not steal that one off of the catcher. This is definitely stolen off of the infielders. Now, Park gets the ball right. Now, he's there quick enough, but there's no one there, so he has the double clutch. And by the time that he gets the ball to Gagne, you see that Bernard is safe. Good call there by the second base umpire, Mike Winters. And you see Piazza, he's yelling at him, and he's going. And you see no one covering.
Wow.
He said, just like when I'm trying to throw them out.
You don't see that very often, and as a skipper, you never want to see it. Bill Russell just can't do anything about that. One of the problems in managing when those things happen, you can watch it, but you can't change it. See whether or not the bunt is on here. Mike Blauer started in at third base with Sean Dunston up there, who is a very good bunter. They lay one down here in the first inning. 11th stolen base for Bernard to get himself into scoring position.
Well, Gary, to put the blame where it belongs is tough because we don't know who was covering the bag. If Gagne was supposed to cover on the steal, then it was his responsibility. If DeShields was covering on the steal, well, the second base was his responsibility. But 99% of the time, second base is the responsibility of the second baseman.
Or worse than that, they didn't know who was covering that time and didn't have it down. Weren't expecting it. Pitch is taken outside for a ball on the breaking ball by Park. And the count goes to 2 balls and 2 strikes on Dunston. Infield will back up here with a 2-strike count on him. See, the last 29 games, the numbers he has put up, that's better than any other San Francisco Giant during that streak. Check back this time by Park. He reaches for one outside. Park can really bring it, Joe. He's a strikeout pitcher, but he's got too many base on balls in those numbers.
Well, that's true. He started a game against the Giants in San Francisco. He struck out 6 hitters in the first couple of innings, and he walked 4 out of 5 and then walked a couple of more, and they took him out of the ball game. So, I mean, he has spells where he just loses control of the plate, can't find the plate, and then he ends up just kind of aiming the ball.
He's got the 5-2 mark going for him. Breaking ball, fouls that one back. If he has control of any of his off-speed pitches, he's really trouble because that fastball is a great heater.
Well, his fastball is his best pitch, but like all Dodger pitchers, they will use the changeup, some form of a changeup, whether it's a slow curve or a straight change. They all will keep you off balance with the off-speed pitches.
Bernard's out there at second base. Single stolen bases put him there. Nobody out. Dunston battling here with a 2-2 count. And he fouls that one off to the first baseline. Almost. That was close. Being over the bag as again he's reaching outside. Park is working him outside here. Dunston's got good bat coverage. He has always been a player who has struck out a lot in his career, even though he's a contact hitter. He's had only 8 walks. This year has struck out only 29 times. So up there looking for the free pass. Overhand breaking ball misses down low, and Dunston has worked this count to 3-2. Outfield playing deep on him. Very little breeze here tonight. Matt Williams, the on-deck batter in the 3rd spot for them. Park. He's already thrown 8 pitches to Dunston here in this at bat. 3-2. And he got him to chase. Good movement on the pitch away and the strikeout for Park.
Well, one of the things that happens on this pitch is that Dunston wanted to hit the ball to the right side. The pitch is away, so he figures he can just ground it to the right side. But this is so far off the plate that he has no chance of making contact. This pitch is way off the plate. But he knows if he does make contact, he'll get the ground ball or hit the ball to the right side. And that would have moved Bernard over to third base.
Didn't catch that one. So Dunston a strikeout victim and 1 down, and here's Matt Williams.
And you mentioned he's sitting third. Well, he switched places with Barry Bonds so that he could get a little more protection. And the fact that he had been struggling and they thought it was Bonds hitting behind him that would help get him better pitches to hit.
And a runner at second base, and Park misses up high to him, ball 1. Comes into this game with a 5-game hit streak and 6 hits in his last 13 at-bats. Big Matt Williams. A longer period of time, though, like most of the Giants in this lineup. Hard to believe Matt Williams would hit 208 over any extended streak. That has been the story for the Giants. That one right off the Fisk. Agnew shot will hang on, goes for the double play and won't get it.
Good pitch there by Chan-Ho Park in that he ran the fastball in on Matt Williams. And he does have great movement on his fastball. It's not just a hard fastball, but he gets good movement.
This great rivalry continuing here. 1,941st time they've played. And if there's a good player on the opposing team like a Williams or like a Bonds, you can bet the crowd will react. And they do to Barry as he stands in. See the numbers he's put up. And he's known for great second halves. So hang in. 70 RBIs, 24 home runs for him.
You know, interesting thing, Gary, they put Barry Bonds behind Matt Williams to protect him, but who's going to protect Barry? I mean, right now with first base open, if you're Chan Ho Park and the Dodgers, you do not give him anything good to hit. And he's throwing him 2 changeups to start this at bat off.
Not even close, and he knows it. You can see Bonds is upset. See, with runners in scoring position, you don't let this guy beat you. In the 90s, more walks than anyone else. And he's been up with runners in scoring position, and he's got one at second base here. 2-0 by Chan Ho Park. Fastball. He got the outside corner with that. Kept it down low. 2-1.
They got the extreme edge of the outside corner, and that's the way they're going to pitch him. If they can get the edge of the corner, they know Barry can't do a lot with it, but you're taking a chance if you miss by 6 inches.
5th in home runs, 7th in RBIs starting the day. Watches that one down low again. He is also 4th in walks in the league. That's how they've nullified the threat of Barry Bonds. 3-ball, 1-strike count. There are 2 down here. Bernard led this inning off with a single. He's still out there at second base, having stolen. Park breaking ball, and that'll be the walk. So Bonds, frustrated by it all, will take the walk and heads down to first base to put a couple on for Javier. 70th walk that he's drawn this season, and that is the 47th given up by Park.
Well, I think that was an intentional walk on behalf of Park, and that he wanted Bonds to chase a pitch. He wouldn't chase it, so he's happy to have him at first base. And again, I have to question, you know, the situation, saying, well, who's going to protect Bonds if you're trying to protect Williams? Which guy gives you the biggest production? I think it's Bonds. He needs the most protection.
Probably Dusty Baker would stay with that, Joe, until he gets Williams out of the funk that he's been in, maybe, huh?
Yeah, well, maybe that's why he put Bonds there. Bonds was swinging the bat okay, not great, but Williams was struggling, so he put Barry behind him so that he could protect Matt. But if they're missing Glenn Allen Hill, I mean, the Giants, if they had Glenn Allen Hill, I think they would be a much, much better ball club.
Javier up there takes the breaking pitch. Piazza able to block it and hold it out in front of him. Runners cannot advance. A ball and a strike with 2 down. Bernard on at second base, and Bonds over at first, 2 away. RBI opportunity here for Javier, who's hitting only 197 with runners in scoring position. 13 for 66 this year. That's the kind of protection that's not there that Joe was talking about. Chan Ho Park gets him to chase one outside. Off-speed pitch again, and it gets the ball and 2 strikes. Signed a couple of seasons ago, $1.2 million bonus baby for the Dodgers. He just turned 23 years old. Out of Korea, the great fastball, working on the changeup pitches. Showed you already getting up in the high 90s on his deliveries. This will be his 8th start of the season. A couple times as a substitute for a pitcher injured like tonight. Gets the bounce back. Makes the play over to Carlos at first base. Javier's retired. No runs, a base hit. 2 are left on. Dodgers coming up with Mike Piazza. Giants leave a couple on in their half of the first. The Dodgers will be coming up now. Scoreless first inning. Bill Russell setting the lineup. He's really had all the experiences of a manager except actually doing it at the major league level until this occasion with Tommy Lasorda out of there. Otherwise, he's been Tommy's right-hand man. Take a look at the lineup he's putting out there. It'll be Chad Fonville leading it off. Delano DeShields back in at second base. Mike Piazza doing the catching, batting third. And for Piazza, 7 home runs in his last 44 at-bats as Piazza continues just a great season. Eric Karros playing at first base. Raul Mondesi in right. Mike Blowers at third base. Todd Hollinsworth in left field. Greg Gagney's the shortstop. Ho Chung Pak is doing the pitching and will be batting in the 9 spot. The man they will be facing tonight is William Van Landingham.
And Van Landingham has a sinker and off-speed stuff, breaking ball. And he struggled this year because his sinker has not been as effective as it had been in the past. They were expecting him to be a guy to win maybe 15 ball games for him this year, and he has really struggled. And a lot of people believe that he has not been aggressive enough. By that, I mean challenging the hitters early in the count. And let's take a look at the Giants' defense. Shortstop Sean Dunston has been a standout for the Giants this season.
Leading off for the Los Angeles Dodgers, number 3.
And he made a great play last night. I mean, this is a great play. Not a good play, but a great play. I mean, that ball just sticks right in the web of his glove. Watch this. He extends completely out, ball right in his glove. Right in the web. Great play there by Sean Dunston.
He is really having a season right now for the San Francisco Giants. He is kind of the cement on this team at this moment, holding what things can be held together. Chad Fonville will lead it off for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Van Landingham, strike on the inside corner.
Well, you can see there with Van Landingham, that didn't look like much of a sinker there. And again, sinking fastball is his best pitch, and he also has a very good curveball that's effective against right-handers. Those pitches up in the strike zone, not where you want to throw the ball if you're a sinker ball pitcher.
Has that delivery over towards that third base side, which is strange, comes back across the body. Has to use a lot of arm in his deliveries.
Well, that's very effective against right-handed pitchers as well. And he has had some problems with his arm, but it's a very effective, that crossfire against right-handers.
Well, the numbers he's put up of late. He has not won a ball game in his last 6 starts, 2 losses, 4 no decisions for him. Ball and 2 strikes. Many of the coaches, though, talking with him before the game, feel that he's not that far away, even though he's got the 4.9 mark and a big ERA. And had him fooled on that one. Fonville to second. Thompson is there, makes the play to McCarty at first, and Chad Fonville's retired, 1 down.
Well, it's a big curveball. He throws it almost overhand and gets it to break straight down. And again, that's his best pitch is his fastball, and that's his second best pitch is his overhand curveball.
Delino DeShields has almost become a lost Dodger on this team. Expected to add some punch and play regularly. DeShields all of a sudden has found himself more often than not on the bench on this team and not getting anywhere near the playing time he thought he'd have. Grounded towards short, cut off there by Sean Dunston, makes that strong throw over, and DeShields now 3 for his last 21. He's the second out here in the first inning.
With Piazza coming up, I don't think it was any coincidence that the Dodgers were shut out last night by the Giants, because they've been swinging the bat well with Piazza in there.
Gets a game off a week on average. Trying to preserve the knees, which are bothering him. The age-old question now for young Mike Piazza is how long will he catch? When will he move? Not if, but when will he move to another position in order to preserve that great bat in the lineup even more often? Inside corner, strike taken. He's got a 12-game hit streak. Leads the National League in average, 3rd in home runs. During the streak, the 423 mark, 7 homers and 17 RBIs. For Mike Piazza, the All-Star MVP. He is not using Jose Canseco's bat, by the way, as he did in the All-Star game. Mike was showing me his bats. He's very finicky about the balance on his bats. He uses the same model that's ordered from Japan that Jose Canseco uses. And he couldn't get his bats delivered, so he used Canseco's for the All-Star game, but he's back home now with some of his own models with his name on it. Says he likes to fool around with bat balance, though. He tries different bats. Loves the ones he's getting from over there. Outside missed on that one. A ball and 2 strikes.
Well, the thing that makes him a good hitter is he has great plate coverage. You can pitch him away and he'll hit the ball in the right field seats. You come inside, which is the way to try to pitch him, and he can still inside out the ball over the right field wall or center field wall.
1-2 delivery to him is fouled off. He is a very, very tough out. The strikeouts this season, only 47. He has drawn 35 walks this year. We talk about protection in a lineup. Not sure there's anybody who can protect maybe the game's best hitter in the National League right now. He's got Karros and Mondesi working behind him, though. Some guys who can deliver the long ball as well. 1-2 by Van Landingham. It's hit to short as he had a reach. Sean Dunston makes the play, and the Dodgers are retired in order. We've completed one here in L.A. The Giants and Dodgers scoreless. Beautiful scenery here in Los Angeles. Great to have you with us on this Sunday night, everybody. Gary Thorne and Joe Morgan. A scoreless first inning. There are actually no grass fires out there. And it's amazingly comfortable here. It tends to be a good deal humid this time of year here in L.A., but
leading off for the Giants.
Giants will have their first baseman leading it off.
David McCarty.
David McCarty ready to stand in against Chan Ho Park. Park's last start was because Martinez came up with a flu. This time he makes the start because Candiati came up with a bad elbow. Numbers on McCarty. 26-year-old fouls that one off. Minor leaguer, acquired in a deal from Cincinnati. He has been in the minor leagues most of his pro career, 5 years worth, 12 games with the Giants last season. He was an All-American at Stanford University. He's back in the territory where he played his college ball. But Joe, here's another situation where really hasn't taken the position over. McCarty, you know, is all right, but he hasn't filled the needs the Giants have.
Well, they traded Mark Carrion. I think it's just more about money there.
Pops that one up. A lot of room outside of first base. Garros over. And he'll put that away. McCarty retired, one down.
But the problem is, you're right. They have to find another bat someplace if they're going to be able to protect Barry Bonds and Matt Williams in the lineup.
And get some more umph in there from somebody other than those two. Boy, talk about what has been a dreadful season. Robbie Thompson's having that right now. A premier player for the Giants over the years. That one to second base, playing deep. Delano DeShields. And Thompson's retired, going after the first pitch. So his struggles at the plate continue.
Well, Robbie Thompson had been, you know, a good offensive player for the Giants and a very fine defensive player before all of his back injuries, etc. And I think Robbie Thompson now is really kind of a shell of what he was, and that's unfortunate because he was a very good player and he was a hard-working player. He was a winner. He was the kind of guy you wanted on your ball club. He would hit the ball to the right side. He would bunt. He would do all the little things to help your ball club win.
A get-down dirty player. Rarely left the field. You see the numbers, how they have fallen off for him. We'll talk about it a little more later, but he may be playing his last season as a Giant. Two down and the base is empty, and the catcher Tom Lampkin up.
I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he will not be with the Giants next year because, I mean, you're talking about a $5 million second baseman. They can use that money elsewhere, acquire maybe a hitter that we're talking about. And that's nothing against Robbie because, again, he's a very fine person and a good player, but I think it's time for the Giants to have to turn the page.
With a $375,000 buyout provision. Sure as heck's a lot cheaper than $3.37 million.
Yes.
Next year. So there doesn't seem to be much doubt. That's the direction they'll take. Two down, bases empty. Lampkin, the catcher, Chan-Ho Park, working here. 2-1 to him. Reaching on the outside part of the plate, fouled off. Lampkin 7 for his last 48. 136 batting average over the last 21 games for the San Francisco Giants. But despite all that's gone wrong for them, they are not double digits behind, even though they're last in that Western Division.
And you can make up ground very quickly in the Western Division, as we've seen. The Padres are in last place one day, 3 days later are back in first place. And so this division is still wide open, and I'm sure Dusty Baker feels like if they can get on a hot streak, they can get right back in, because they were in the race and then they went on this long losing streak, and they feel like they can get right back into it if they can win a few ball games in the next 20.
You almost figure just by the good graces of the Almighty, you're not going to go 3-17.
Oh. Well, if you look at the, you know, over the course of a 162-game season, that happens to a lot of ball clubs. I mean, you struggle for a while, maybe not 3-17, but you will have some struggles.
It's just unbelievable. Popped up behind second base by Lampkin. It'll be DeShields making the catch, and a 1-2-3 inning here by Chan-Ho Park. Caros, Mondesi, both coming up when we come back to Dodger Stadium. Home where they are 27-19 this season at Dodger Stadium. A couple games below 500 for the Dodgers on the road. Eric Caros will be leading it off. Mondesi and Flowers will follow. The numbers for Caros with the 20 home runs and 54 RBIs for him on the season. Right-handed hitter against right-hander William Van Landingham. And the strike in the inside corner. That's at a doubleheader that they played today. They lost the first one, came back to win the second one big against Houston. That was a 4-game series as well. As Big Bertha put an end to the ball game yesterday, the Hurricane forced the doubleheader today. No score, second inning. Just one hit, Giants have it. Caros 2 for 9 in his career against Van Landingham. Opposition hitting .285 off this Giant right-hander. He's given given up 13 home runs this year. 1-1 pitch down the right field line. Long run for Javier towards that corner. He gets there and makes a nice catch. He was swung around the other way, and Caros put it down in that tough corner in right field. 1 down.
Well, Stan Javier has been a center fielder in his career. In fact, he played center field for the Giants, so he's a good outfielder. He gets a good jump on the ball, and remember, this ball is curving away from him because a right-hander hit it. It's slashing away. Keeps his eyes on the ball all the way. Now he gets there and he knows he's got it. Nice running catch there by Stan.
Kind of run on there, don't you? Not much room. Good help defensively that time from Javier in right field. Raul Mondesi coming up. Mondesi chases the high heat that time.
I think that's one of the differences between Mondesi now and his first year in the big leagues. I mean, even then he would chase a few pitches, but now the pitchers know that more about him, and they will throw a lot of pitches out of the strike zone, and he will chase a lot more pitches. And that's one of the reasons his average is down like that. I mean, he hasn't thrown a strike and he's 0-2, and it's very difficult to hit 0-2. I don't care who you are, but that's the difference between a 300 hitting Mondesi and a 273 hitting Mondesi that we have now.
Those weren't even close, were they?
No. It's okay to be a bad ball hitter, but you can see that his numbers have gone down, and I think that's because pitchers are more familiar with him.
He has struck out 63 times and almost 64.
Well, why throw him a strike? I mean, if he's going to swing pitches out of the strike zone, you don't have to throw him one. And I mean, even now you say, okay, I've thrown 3 pitches. I'll just continue to throw the ball out of the strike zone. He will swing at one of them.
Only 13 walks. Van Landingham ahead on the count here. Ball and 2 strikes. Randy Marsh, our home plate umpire. 1-2 delivery to it. Foul back. Brian Gorman, Mike Winters, and Ron Barnes, the umpiring crew here for this last game of the 4-game set at Dodger Stadium. Talking about that Western race, Joe, it sure looks like that race is just going to go right down to the final days. The Dodgers, I would think, with their pitching, would have the advantage. And I'm not sure are going to be able to jump out ahead. San Diego's shown that they are a club that can rally this year. Jammed him inside. Good pitch. Van Landingham gets his first strikeout, and there are 2 down in the 2nd inning.
Well, it's another good pitch. It's also a ball. The ball starts over the plate and sinks down and in. This is the first pitch, the high fastball, way up out of the strike zone. Then the breaking ball way out of the strike zone. Again, he chases it. I mean, he just chased his pitches. Now watch, the pitcher starts over the inside corner, sinks down and off the plate, and he swings at it. So he did not get 1 strike in that entire at bat. Even the ball he fouled off was a ball.
That's a good job of pitching.
Yes, don't throw him a strike unless he forces you to.
Mike Flowers fouls that one off. The Dodger third baseman. He was out there watching Piazza take batting practice. Was in the same group today, and I was kidding Mike about his bats and what he was using. He said, don't let him kid you. If he came up with a toothpick, he'd still drive it 410 feet. I said, Mike, he swings just like you do. Mike said, you know, I've said that to myself over and over again. It's not the same result. 2 down, fouled off, and an 0-2 count on Flowers.
My last trip into Dodger Stadium, a month or so ago, I went into the clubhouse and I was talking to Piazza, and he was complaining then about the bats. He said, Joe, I get all these bats, only 1 or 2 of them are any good. And he was again talking about the balance. He's a perfectionist almost with his bats. He wants the balance to be perfect, and he doesn't accept them if they're not. He just kind of uses them for batting practice, he says.
Hideo Nomo's become his connection to getting bats. Hideo's introduced him to the bat makers in Japan, and they use that white ash, Japanese white ash, and he likes it. He says it's very strong, very solid. He thinks it's a little better, and thanks to Hideo Nomo, he's gotten the pipeline direct, so he can call and order the bats without going through anybody. A 1-2 pitch by Van Landingham misses inside. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Maybe that's why the hitters are having such great seasons the last few years. There are so many choices of bats to choose from now. I mean, there's so many names. I've seen bats I've never heard of before, but some guys are making them work.
2-2 pitch. Down low, Van Landingham was ready to go in and sit, but he didn't get the call. 3 balls and 2 strikes here, and Mike Flowers.
I saw Mo Vaughn hit a 457-foot home run the other day with something called a KC Slammer.
Yeah.
I've seen, just about every bat maker makes their own special brand.
And he missed outside. First walk given up by Van Landingham comes with 2 down here in the 2nd inning, and You no sooner speak of him, Joe, than we present Mo Vaughn. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball. It'll be the Yankees and the Red Sox, another great traditional matchup. The Yankees, wow, they walloped Baltimore. They've taken the big lead there. Wednesday night, 7:30 Eastern for the first of two. Padres-Dodgers, by the way, the second game there. As you'll see Ken Caminetti and Mike Piazza and Dodgers and company again on Wednesday night on ESPN. It's part of the doubleheader.
And they call Mo affectionately in Boston the hit dog.
The hit dog.
Yeah.
Well, he couldn't be more appropriately titled, I'll tell you that much. 2 down, runner at first base. First base runner Dodgers have had, and it's going to be fouled back by Hollinsworth. Todd Hollinsworth, yet another of the players in this Dodger team, showing the depth of the Dodger organization. They've brought him along, ready to play in the outfield, getting his work in left field for L.A. Fred Clare is to be given a great deal of credit for that, for the overall operation of this club. They do come up with talent. They are as good as anybody in the homegrown talent field. Center field, got a hold of that one. Bernard back, got plenty of room though, and will haul it in. And Hollinsworth is retired. No runs, a walk. One base runner left on. We've completed 2. We are scoreless here in L.A.
Line bottom of the 5th, tied at 2. Rockies with the double steal. John Flaherty throws down, overthrows, can't get Andres Galarraga, and Ellis Burks takes home on the play. Rockies win 8-4. Back to you, Gary.
And as a result, you take a look here with San Diego game and a half out, Colorado 2, and the Giants 8.5 behind here in this race. And next Sunday, our ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, end of the week, you'll see the Rockies 3 o'clock Eastern time. Third inning, only 1 hit in this ball game. The leadoff single by Bernard. That has been it for both teams in this one. Van Landingham, the opposing pitcher, comes to the plate here.
Gary, I was talking about the bats that the players have a chance to choose from. I want to just give you a few, just to realize that years ago there was only the Louisville Slugger and the Rawlings Adirondack bat. Now they have Zett, Worth, Rawlings, of course, Cooper, KC Slammer, Louisville Slugger, Adirondack, and what's the other one? Zett. That's the one that Mike Piazza uses.
That's the one he had out there tonight. He uses that. Zett for batting practice and Mizuno for the game.
Right. I mean, that's amazing. But they say that the wood is better now than ever before with all of these bats. That's great.
3-2 count.
We talk about the fact that maybe the bat is juiced. It's been discussed. Maybe the bats are a little harder as well.
Yep.
Better wood.
One of the reasons for the long balls this year.
Yeah.
And Van Landingham is a strikeout victim. Gunho Park getting his second strikeout, 1 away here in the 3rd inning. That'll bring us back to the top of the order.
Marvin Bernard.
Bernard coming up. Led this game off with a single, stole second and was stranded. 2 were left on in the 1st inning by the Giants. Only 1 has been left on base in this game by the Dodgers. In at 3rd base against Bernard, who's got good speed and can lay the bunt down, will come Mike Flowers. He'll cheat in at both corners now, and the breaking ball off speed. Letter high strike. See him moving in at the corners here. Flowers at 3rd, Eric Karros at 1st, and the outfield fairly shallow.
Watch Bernard blow a bubble just before that first pitch, which will tell you that he was automatically going to take that pitch, and he did.
Both signs.
Yeah, I mean, very difficult to hit while you're blowing bubbles. Hitting is difficult to do.
0-2 delivery to him. Wouldn't chase the fastball by Park. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Not blowing bubbles anymore either.
He's got 2 strikes on him. And Hope Park with that great fastball. That's his put-away pitch.
You know what?
1-2.
Maybe Sparky Anderson was right. He said, I see too much sometimes. What am I doing watching a guy blow bubbles? Yeah. He wasn't being complimentary, though, at the time.
Well, you just thought that. He really was. 2 balls, 2 strikes. He blows the bubble here, he'll shoot every rule in the book down. And again, not chasing the fastball, stayed off it, and the count is 3 balls and 2 strikes.
And if you're a Giants player, the deeper you can get into the count with park, the better off your chances are, because obviously you would have seen a couple of fastballs, and you'll know the movement on his fastball, because that's going to be his out pitch when he gets into a tight situation.
3-2 delivery to him. Fights that one off down the left field line. And it will stay at 3 balls and 2 strikes.
Very rarely will you see Park throw anything other than a fastball, 2-2 or 3-2.
Still one of the prettiest ballparks in baseball. Here at Dodger Stadium. From upstairs, the view down onto the field.
It is amazing how this stadium has stood the test of time. I mean, still, like you say, one of the most beautiful ballparks in baseball.
Comebacker. Menlo Park, plenty of time, gets him. And Bernard is retired, and there are 2 down. 2 away here in the 3rd. That's from the very back behind home plate, looking down at Dodger Stadium here. Familiar picture seen in all the baseball magazines at some point or other.
I left some passes for some friends of mine once, and they brought me that exact picture.
You got pulled, Joe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they were in that exact spot up there, and they took a picture and brought it to me.
And said, we're not calling you again.
You're right.
That's right. And you've never heard from him since. 2 down, Sean Dunston up. Whoa, he got fooled with the breaking ball, but it missed. Dunston struck out his first time up. Another great part about this yard, the last rain out here was April 21, 1988. John Hammond was right. 1-0 pitch, swung on and missed. Took something off that one and got the home plate umpire Randy Marsh on the foul tip. 1-1. Went right through Piazza and caught Marsh. Both dugouts, you can bet, are now chiming in, wishing him well, and saying they're sorry that he took that ball. You get no help. 1-1 the count. And a breaking ball. Woof. That's a couple of those he's thrown. Big, wide, sweeping curve.
Well, he will throw the breaking balls when he's early in the count. As you see, this is a big, slow curve ball. Dunston way out in front. That type of curveball not only fools you with the break of the ball, but it fools you with the speed. That's what makes curveballs more difficult to hit. That's why it ruins a lot of hitters at bats.
1-2 delivery. Then he gives you that. The mustard seed on the outside corner. Put my helmet down. Thank you very much. 3 strikeouts. Retires the side in order. He has set down the last 7 Giants he's faced. We're scoreless. No Momania has not faded here in the Los Angeles area. As you take a look inside one of the shops here. All kinds of them. Stay with ESPN for the latest on the world's most important cycling event, the Tour de France, presented by Michelin. You can catch coverage of stage 14 tonight at 3 a.m. Eastern, 12 midnight Pacific on ESPN. Then tomorrow, turn to ESPN2. The Deuce will have coverage of stage 15 starting at 6 Eastern. Tour de France coverage on the mothership and the Deuce. Gary Thorne, Joe Morgan. John Miller has a night off tonight, so my pleasure to be here with Joe. My favorite golfer.
My pleasure.
No. Oh, no. Ready to go here to the bottom half of the 3rd inning. Shortstop, Ray Gagne stands in. And Van Landingham winds one outside, ball 1.
Speaking of golf, I played golf with Dan Marley and Pete Sampras today, and Marley said he's going to rush back, get to Marley's Sports Grill, and watch us on TV tonight. So, hello, Dan.
Hello, Sports Grill.
Yeah.
1 ball, 1 strike. Where's that up, Tom?
No, he lives in Phoenix.
Oh, he's in Phoenix?
Well, yeah, it's in Phoenix. Even though he plays for the Cavaliers, he still has a restaurant there in Phoenix.
A 1-1 count. Gagne at 279 as he stands in. The 3rd, Matt Williams is in on the grass, makes the nice play in the short hop and retires him. Gagne retired on the ground ball up. Mike Piazza, Tommy Lasorda, probably the primary reason he's in Major League Baseball. We asked him before the game, can you imagine the game without Tommy?
It'd be tough to really imagine Tommy not being here and managing us. But, you know, again, that's just the way life is. Sometimes you have to move on, and you know, we're all basically, like I said, prepared for anything. But the most important thing is Tommy's health. I mean, if he doesn't feel he's able to come back and deal with the pressure, if it's going to take its toll on him like it did this year, then then you know, he obviously should reconsider that. But if he feels that he can come back and kind of circumvent that pressure a little bit, not let it get to him, then of course we want him back.
They certainly are very close beyond just manager and player. Mike phrasing that pretty well.
I think most of the Dodger players, including Bill Russell, are kind of resigned to the fact that, hey, maybe he will not be back. Or if he comes back, obviously we'll pick up where we left off. But if he doesn't, we'll just have to keep going forward.
1-1 pitch fouled off by Park, getting his first at-bat in the game. 1 for 12 as a hitter this season with a couple of RBIs.
Well, Gary, it'll be difficult for me because coming into Dodger Stadium today, this is the first time I've ever been to Dodger Stadium. You know, and since I retired, Tommy Lasorda wasn't there, and I didn't get a chance to go in the clubhouse. Talked to him before the game, and he always had this upbeat attitude. He'd tell me something great that I could use on the air. Yeah. You know, during the ballgame, there's Peter O'Malley, the Dodger owner, and I did miss that. Plus the pasta that I usually have.
I knew you'd get to
him in the clubhouse, but
he had the best Italian restaurant in any city he was in.
You're right. In his clubhouse.
The bat went a long way. The ball, though, went into the catcher's mitt. Parks retired. Bat got an infield hit. And a couple strikeouts for Van Landingham.
Well, there's a pitcher swing. Sometimes I feel like pitchers' bats should have for display purposes only on it. Then they won't come up there and have the problem.
You are
Don't make themselves look so bad.
You are cruel.
But there are some good hitting pitchers now.
And you're not a fan of the DH.
No, definitely not.
So
I like to see pitchers
want
learn
to embarrass
hit or
them.
bunt. No, I want them to learn to bunt. Bunt, swing the bat.
Fonville up, grounded out his first time up. I've never favored the DH until this year. And Tom Candiotti was supposed to start tonight. Another reason. Candiotti's out because of a recurring problem, having been hit by a pitch when he had to come to the plate a week ago. Bothered him again tonight. He started to warm up. That one blew shallow center field, but it's going to stay up long enough. Bernard comes on to make the catch, and Fonville is retired. Dodgers have had only one base runner via the walk. We're scoreless.
Williams.
San Francisco Giants 19-27 on the road here at Dodger Stadium in this fourth game of the four, trying to even it up if the Giants could win it. Saw the line score through 3. We've had just one hit. Bernard had that leading off the ball game. Matt Williams popped out his first time up. 7th best in RBIs in the league, along with that 300+ batting average. A career .260 hitter, but last year .336 for Williams. Rifles that one foul down the right field line.
Well, his first time up, Chan-Ho Park's fastball ran in tight and jammed Matt Williams. Let's take a look at it. Watch this ball really run in. See, it hits him right on the fist. Short pop up to Gagne. This time up, the first pitch, Park goes away because Williams was looking in, and he fouls it down the right field line.
Straight back, and it goes to 2 strikes.
And you can see pitchers and the catcher working well together in most cases because they jam Matt Williams, and deep down inside they know Matt doesn't want that to happen again. Hitters hate to get jammed worse than anything else, so they know he's going to look for a fastball in, so these first 2 pitches have been away. But then they will come back in, though, but they'll pick their own time to do that.
Chan-Ho Park delivers outside this time. Just missed a ball at 2 strikes. Even when he's missing, it's not by much. 96-mile-an-hour fastball. Matt Williams had to leave last Saturday night's game after being hit by Tim Worrell in the first inning. You see all the coverage he's got on that left arm. 1-2 pitch, great changeup. Mercy. 3 strikeouts.
And I'll tell you what, we say what we want, but that first at bat set that pitch up perfectly because they never came back inside. Matt Williams is protecting inside, and he throws that beautiful curveball on the outside corner. You see, Piazza's actually set up off the outside corner, and the pitch is off. But Matt Williams cannot handle that pitch because he is still protecting the inside part of the plate. So one pitch can ruin your entire day.
That is 4 Ks. Chan-Ho Park right up the middle. Had him played that way. Gagne up with it, and Bonds is out. They had the shift on, squeezing the middle with Gagne over. That normally is a base hit, almost over the bag at second.
I don't think that's fair. they shouldn't let guys play like this. I mean, this is beautiful hitting by Bonds. Ball away from him, goes, hits it back through the middle the way you're supposed to. Took a little too long to look at it. Gagne fights it off, picks it up, and fires to first base, and he just barely gets Bonds at first base.
Stan Javier up. How many times do you see a ball almost hit the pitcher in the head and end up being a ground ball out to short? 2 down in this scoreless game. Channel Park missing outside with that one. Javier grounded out his first time up.
I know you're happy this inning is going so quickly because you do not have to explain your DH preference here.
I'd be more than happy to discuss that with you, knowing the fan you are of the DH. Pitchers are a valuable commodity. Like I compare them to quarterbacks in football. Quarterbacks in football protected by rules. I think the pitching is so needed in this game. You cannot afford to have them hit and get hurt.
Okay, so I'll respond like Mike Ditka did about protection for quarterbacks. You want to put skirts on them or what?
I don't care what they wear, but protect them.
Oh, okay. You want to protect
their job is to pitch. That's all. Just pitch it. You've already said they can't hit.
But you're making them specialists, and baseball is not a game of specialists. Football and other sports may be, but baseball, you're supposed to have to, you're hit, you field your position, you do all the things that you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to think.
Now, you cannot tell me pitching has not become a specialty part in this game. The way pitchers, overall, bullpens are structured, staffs are structured, it is a specialty.
Okay, but I mean, you want to protect the bullpen guys, too. You want to protect all the pitchers.
Pitchers aren't going to hit.
Well, there are only like 30 quarterbacks in existence in the NFL, and there are 300.
Wait, who's passing you notes over there? You can't have help.
I won't say 300 pitchers, but there are 300 guys that go to the mound out there.
But there aren't enough to go around the major leagues. Breaking ball, good one, down to third. Bauer's up with it, makes the play to first base. Javier is retired. Joe Morgan, the lover of all pitchers. Piazza will be coming up when we come back. We're scoreless. As the Dodgers go back to work against Van Landingham, DeShields, Piazza, and Karros do up here. DeShields grounded out his first time up. He is second in stolen bases in the league when he can get on. He is a .271 career hitter. This year, .247 as he stands in right now.
And he does not walk a lot. And actually, you know, they wanted him to be a leadoff hitter when they brought him here from Montreal. But he actually strikes out a lot, so he's not your typical leadoff type hitter.
Yeah, the strikeouts going the other way over the past couple of seasons, as he had 151 in '91, and then years since then has dropped the strikeout numbers down. This year, though, the hits just haven't been there for him. So the average has fallen off.
And there was a time he was considered maybe the best second baseman in the league when he was in Montreal.
1-2 pitch is taken outside, and it goes to 2 balls and 2 strikes. Right-hander Van Landingham has walked 1 and struck out 2. He is 2-2 lifetime against the Dodgers. Second appearance against them, non-decision. The first one towards short, Sean Dunston. Just a big throw to get DeShields by a half step. Piazza coming up with 1 away.
Well, if you're going to get Mike Piazza out, you have to keep the ball in on him and then go away. Now watch this. This is a perfect pitch. Fastball in, makes him think inside. Now they go away with a breaking ball, and watch, he steps inside, but then he has to reach for it. And that's what you want the hitter to do. Keep him off balance. And there's no better way to keep a hitter off balance than to be able to fire him up inside first and then go away. Because, again, none of the good hitters especially like to be jammed.
Piazza stands in there as the best hitter in the National League with a .361 batting average. Van Landingham been on the money here. He's made it tough. That's a grounded out his first time up, but Van Landingham with that delivery of his has got him chasing.
Well, again, he's looking for the ball inside. See how he's pulling off? And you have to protect inside. That's what he's thinking. And Van Landingham this time goes away.
Stays away, but misses outside that time. A ball and a strike. He has thrown 14 out of the strike zone, 29 in it so far in this game.
When you're successful on a hitter inside, you do not have to keep pitching him inside. That stays in the back of his mind that you will come inside again.
1-1, Van Landingham off speed. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Now they've thrown him like 3 breaking balls and pitches away. See, now you have to come inside again just to keep him honest again. even throw it for a ball as we take a look at that last breaking ball away. And that's helps. We talked about Van Landingham's throwing across his body. See, that hides the ball from the right-handed hitter.
1-2 delivery. Piazza takes the fastball down low. Piazza struck out 60 times while drawing 28 walks this season. It's his big numbers, of course, that matter for them. Home runs and RBIs, and #1 in the National League, young Grace Burks and Gwynn. Tony, of course, injured and out for San Diego. Fouls that one off, went down to get it. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Well, he threw a fastball there. It was supposed to tail in. It didn't tail in enough. And that's when you get hurt with Piazza, is when you make a pitch and you get too much of the plate with it.
He has hit Van Landingham hard in his career. 5 hits and 9 at-bats against Van Landingham. Piazza can say that, of course, against a lot of people. See 46 pitches thrown there. And that one drilled to center field. Bernard in front of it will put it away. Line drive that stayed up for him. 2 down here in the 4th inning.
See, that was not a good pitch by Van Landingham. He got a little lucky there. That was a fastball over the middle of the plate. He starts him off with a breaking ball because he got him out that way last time. Another breaking ball away. And watch, another one away. Piazza off balance. See how he's pulling off? Fastball down and away. Another fastball. See, that's a pitch that Piazza usually hits. Another fastball that he hits hard. See, that ball got the middle of the plate. It was supposed to be inside corner. Got the middle of the plate. You make mistakes like that, and he's going to hit it hard. It's just a matter of whether they catch it or not.
Hit that one at somebody. Eric Karros up. 2 down. Nobody on. Scoreless game. Bottom half of the 4th inning. 2 pitches have just shut down the offenses in this game. Right center. It'll be played by the center fielder Bernard, who's underneath it. And he puts it away. Retires the side in order again. Still, the Dodgers do not have a hit. They've had a base runner, 1 via the walk. Scoreless.
Concentrate.
Zip as the Dodgers Giants locked up in a good one. John Hope Park and Van Landingham, 2 good pitchers going at it in this one.
First baseman.
We go to the top half of the 5th inning. And McCarty, the first baseman, will lead it off. Thompson and Lampkin due up for San Francisco. McCarty popped out his first time up. Giants looking for their 40th win if they could get it here. 1-12 on the road in their last 13, getting out of that 0-12 last night. Dusty Baker, new 2-year contract for the skipper.
And I think it's great that the Giants have shown faith in Dusty. Remember, Dusty won 100 games for him his rookie year. He hasn't gotten dumb in the last 3 or 4.
And a base hit up the middle. So a leadoff single. McCarty's on. That is the first base runner since Bernard led the ball game off with a single, and Bonds got a walk in the first inning.
Number 6.
You know, I was talking to the owner of the Giants. You take a look at this fastball away and moves back over the middle of the plate. That's the reason that you get base hits. When pitchers make mistakes like that, you can see Piazza was set on the outside corner. He started it over the outside, but it moved back to the middle where McCarty could reach it.
The 2nd inning. Giants have had the leadoff man on against John Hope Park. And he's way up high to Robbie Thompson, who grounded out his first time up.
I think when you're the Giants and you're struggling as they have been, and you have a guy like Robbie Thompson who can do a few things at the plate, I think you have to try to use him that way. Maybe hit and run, even bunt sometimes. You have to try to manufacture runs when your big guys are the only way that you're scoring runs.
Just 218. He takes the fastball. A 260 career hitter. Finished up another injury-plagued year last year, batting 223. And the injuries and the average have continued again this season for him. Bothered by both. A runner on at first base and nobody out. 5 times in the last 3 years he has been on the DL. And a strike on the outside corner. Thompson wasn't happy about the call. Looked like a hard slider, 1-2.
Well, I think it was a curveball. He just threw it a little harder. Yeah, that's a curveball. He just throws it a little harder. He probably didn't get as tight, the spin on top as much as he wanted.
He did get the outside corner. McCarty the lead at first base. 1-2 the count. And again, way inside to him. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
You know, Robbie has long been one of my favorite players, and not because he's a second baseman. I think I would have liked Robbie in any position because he has always been a guy that cares about the team and does what he takes to help the team win.
33 years old now, 11th Major League season. 23-year-old Chan Ho Park working against him. And again, that breaking ball misses. 3 balls and 2 strikes.
It's a little difficult to hit at the plate right now because the sun is on the backdrop in center field, and then the pitches come right into the shadows, and you have that reflection against the center field wall. So a little difficult to pick up this rotation, as you can see there on some of the breaking pitches especially.
The 6th 3-2 count for Park. Runner going. Fly ball right center field. Mondesi and Fonville there. Put away by the right fielder, Raul Mondesi. And back comes McCarty to first base. So Robbie Thompson got it to 3-2, but Park got him.
Well, I like that. At least they tried something. It was hit and run situation. They put the McCarty in motion. Robbie actually tried to hit that ball to right field, which wouldn't have worked if he hit it on the ground because the Shields was not covering. Gagne was covering the shortstop instead of the second baseman. There's Dusty Baker. I was reminded by the owner, Peter McGowan, today that in 93, when they won 103 ball games, they had an 8-game losing streak that year as well.
Off the fists and back.
Trying to, find something to look, positive on.
Yeah,
I agree with that. And
yeah.
I think that's why they extended Dusty Baker's contract. Something positive for the ball club and for Dusty. And I think it's also well-deserved because Dusty Baker has not complained. There's Peter McGowan in the blue shirt. Dusty hasn't complained since he's seen the talent level drop since '93 on this ball club. He has not complained and said it's not his fault or it's, the fact that they have not gotten players for him. And I think that's, a testament to the type of person Dusty Baker is. He doesn't blame anyone else. This guy has to do the best job that he can, and I think they've rewarded him, and rightfully so.
And they're not out of it.
Right.
As we said, they are not out of it. Off-speed pitch, foul back, 2-strike count on Lampkin, the catcher, who popped out his first time up. We're scoreless, 5th inning. Giants have 2 hits. The Dodgers have zip. Giants with the leadoff man on McCarty on at first base. San Francisco's just 5-13 against the teams in their own division. That has been a real killer.
Right.
San Diego's done a number on it. They've won 1 game in 10 against the Padres. Fastball misses outside. 1 ball, 2 strikes. I hope Park thought maybe he had caught the corner on that one.
I hope not, Gary.
You hope not?
I hope not. I hope he didn't think that was a strike.
He looked like it, though, or he was mad at himself. I don't know which.
Well, I hope he was mad at himself. That pitch wasn't close.
1-2.
He's trying to fool me.
The step off. Only 23 in a very live right arm. Tom Lampkin waiting with a 1-2 count. Step off and throw over this time with Eric Karros holding the bag.
Now let's take a look at this pitch. Now watch where Piazza reaches for it. Now if he wants that, he's having a problem out there. I won't even consider that begging. That's pleading real hard.
You go for what you can get. The next one you move in a little. Hey, who knows? Like that. This is outside with that one. 2 balls and 2 strikes. The ground ball had come back to him on that one. He never would have got to it. He did a 360 on that.
Well, you see his ball is really alive, as you said, and it runs away from the left-handed hitter. So he's going to have to start that ball in the middle of the plate and let it run to the outside corner. He started out last couple at the outside corner, and they ran away even more.
It's the battle of neck chains here. The 2-2 pitch is swung on and fouled off on the right field line. Mondesi slides in. That's about 2 rows back and then hops a little further back. Long run for Raul Mondesi in right field. Did not have a play on it. 2 balls and 2 strikes. They had to pass through a metal detector to play in the game that no one could play. What'd you wear? Did you wear it?
No.
I did not. In fact, nobody did it.
That would weigh me down if I tried to steal a base or something.
Got one there. And then Park's got one that's about 19 feet long hanging down out there. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Lampkin in battle here and will step off. One walk, 4 strikeouts so far for Park in this game. Making his 8th start of the year. Good pitch. Fooled him on that one, took something off it and kept it down low. Lampkin's the 5th strikeout victim. 2 away.
And he does have excellent movement on all of his pitches, especially when he gets the ball down.
Pitcher,
And you can see this is that slider. It's really supposed to be a curveball. I think he's just he's not getting on top of it enough. But the speed is fooling the hitters as well as the break.
A strange rotation on it.
Yeah, it did.
Half and half.
Well, a lot of guys call that a backup slider.
Yeah.
But I don't think he intended to throw a slider. He was trying to throw a curveball, and it just flattened out on him.
1 strike count. There are 2 down. Leadoff batter McCarty still on at first base. He had the single. Giants' second hit of the game. Park working in the outside corner gets the call there. Van Landingham, a strikeout victim in his first at bat, quickly behind 0-2. And he just blows it by him. He's got 6 Ks, a leadoff single. 1 left on. 3 have been stranded by the Giants in the game, and it is scoreless. His jewelry work with him. Boy, we just can't find a player without it here tonight. Thank God for the old days and Joe. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah, but that is
wait a minute.
No, that's
Look
not.
At this.
I'll tell you what.
Were you on the Mod Squad show? You remember that TV show?
Wait a minute.
Was that you?
Let me tell you now. That thing is very small, and it says "Live, Love, and Laugh." It was not a piece of jewelry.
Oh, it's not a piece of jewelry?
No. It said "Live, Love, and Laugh." That was my motto, and I've tried to adhere to that through the years, but in fact, I don't have it anymore.
No? I thought you looked good like that.
Where are you guys coming up with all these pictures? They had one of them in an Army uniform on once before. I don't know.
You got to be careful.
Yeah, I really do.
You just can't wait for the opportunity. Raul Mondesi. Mondesi, a strikeout victim, his first time up. Van Landingham has walked 1, struck out 2. The Dodgers have had 1 base runner, a walk to Blowers that came in the 2nd inning. That has been it. And Van Landingham gets the strike on the outside corner.
Interesting. I guess Mondesi says when I take it, they call it a strike. I might as well swing anyway.
Go at it. Lost his last start, going just 4 1/3. Gave up 6 runs on 9 hits against San Diego. Done 6 starts without a win. His last win came back against Cincinnati on June 3rd. Tonight, Van Landingham and Park have been the story. They have just shut down the offense. 2 singles in the game for San Francisco, the only hits. And Mondesi again looking at a pitch on that outside corner. 1 ball, 2 strike count.
That's a beautiful pitch there by Van Landingham. I mean, now that's what you call hitting the outside corner. Good look at Chang-Ho Park. Just waiting. Just hurry up and get my guys out so I can get back and get your guys out.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Outfield deep on Mondesi. He's got home run power, but has not had a home run since the end of May. And won't get one here either. Powering fly ball. Moving in. And we'll put it away. And Mondesi's retired. 1 down here in the 5th inning.
I'm going to tell you a story about Barry Bonds. If everybody watched the All-Star game last week, Barry tried to steal a base, and he was thrown out by Ivan Rodriguez at second base. He went back to the bench. He looked at the guys and says, "Now I know I got a good jump. I was running well because I'm not that old." He said, and he still threw me out. He said he threw a little pea down there. I mean, that was really respect for Rodriguez. I mean, all the guys just kind of laughed at him.
Welcome to the arm.
Right. I mean, the guys in the American League could have told him that before.
Yeah. I just got one of those. Mike Blowers, the only base runner, drew that walk in the 2nd inning. Blowers standing in, hitting a .264. He's hit 20 of the last 23 games with a .337 batting average over that time. And rifles that one to right field towards the alley. Javier over, hauls it in. Flowers retired on the fly ball out. There are 2 down.
You know, when you have a center fielder and you move him to left or right, it makes your outfield better. It's like if you have a shortstop that's very good and you move him to second base. I mean, that improves your defense, because the shortstop position is probably the toughest position on the infield to play, and center field is the toughest position in the outfield. So you have more range with a strong arm, etc. So anytime you can move a center fielder to right field, it really helps your defense.
We've seen Javier chase down a couple easily and haul them in. Todd Hollandsworth putting up some very good numbers for this rookie. And he takes the strike. Van Landingham. Left-handers hitting .327 off Van Landingham. Right-handers .257. Those swinging from the south side. as would be expected, to have the better of it. Get a much better look at Van Landingham's delivery swinging in from third. The 0-1, that's towards center field. Bernard moving over, and he's got it. So through 5 innings, Van Landingham has surrendered 1 walk. 8 pitches, he retired them all.
In the 4th inning, got it. 2-run shot, his 24th homer. Mariners won at 8-0. Back to Chavez Ravine.
There's thanks very much. And Texas with that 3-game lead under Johnny Oates. Seattle just 3 behind them. Oakland, California, 8.5, 9.5 respectively. Here a scoreless game going to the 6th inning. Chan-Ho Park's first pitch drilled to right field. It is deep, back of the wall, looking up, and it is gone. Goodbye, home run. Bernard, the leadoff batter. His 2nd home run of the season. This one off Chan-Ho Park, and it gives the Giants a 1-0 lead.
And it's the 2nd home run he's hit this series. It's his first 2 home runs of the season. This is a low fastball, and he gets under it, and he hits it hard, too. Good extension there. He's not known for his power, but this is a line drive that finds its way over the 370 mark.
So Park, who's given up only 3 hits, finds himself behind here. Bernard has had 2 of them with the home run and a 1-0 lead. Sean Dunston, who has struck out twice. 26-year-old out of Nicaragua right there.
He takes that very casually. Look at him like he hits a lot of home runs. Might want to be a little more excited here. 1-0 here in the 6th inning.
Yeah. The way this game's going, 1 could be enough. He has had only 3 major league home runs. He got 1 with the Giants last year. Only had 16 home runs in the minors over 4 minor league seasons. This one's good enough for a 1-0 lead. Chan-Ho Park. Delivery misses here, and he falls behind 3 balls and no strikes on Dunston with Williams and Bonds due up. And Park coming in with a strike and taken all the way. It'll be the 6th home run given up by Park this season. Van Landingham has a run to work with. 3-1 delivery missed up high. 2nd walk.
Matt Williams, he has handled Matt Williams very easily tonight. Fastball in, jams him his first time up, and a beautiful curveball the next time up, and Matt Williams is 0 for 2. That's not so much that Matt's not swinging well. Those were excellent pitches by Chan-Ho Park.
Wallace, the pitching coach, coming out. They're having a word with Chan-Ho Park, who, if you joined us late, we remind you, is a late insertion as the starter in this game for Tom Candiotti.
Third baseman.
Hit by a pitch a week ago.
9.
Had to come out of a game.
Williams.
And tried to warm up for this game and couldn't do it. So Park, a surprise starter, has pitched very well here in this game, but is behind 1-0. Matt Williams up against him. 1 on, nobody out. Williams a strikeout victim and has popped out in his 2 at-bats. That one off the fist, just out of the reach of the Shields into right field. Mondesi will get it in, and wandering down to second was Dunston, just tempting Mondesi to throw the ball. And Mondesi did, but not in time.
Well, I think you called it correctly, wandering down to second base. Park was supposed to get that ball away. Now watch, this ball is supposed to be away. See where Piazza's outside. See, the ball is on the middle of the plate in, and that's why guys get base hits. Pitchers make mistakes. But if they didn't make any mistakes, everyone would pitch a no-hitter every day. And there you see Dunston wandering to second base.
Big chance for Bonds, who's drawn a walk and has grounded out. And a timeout taken here. 2 on, nobody out. 1-0 lead for the Giants, and a chance for them to add to it. Outfield swung around to right. Bonds, the distinct pull hitter, down the first and foul on this one. A great clutch hitter, as you would expect. 350 with runners in scoring position this year for him, and 298 overall. Chance to do some real damage right here, and this is when he is most dangerous.
He has to go after him here.
And he hits it towards second base to Shields. An error. Holding at third base will be Dunston, and the bases are loaded.
Well, that's a situation where you see a second baseman rush to make the play. And really, I don't think he had to rush. This ball was hit pretty sharply, but he starts to turn to throw to second base before he catches the ball. And that's the problem. Watch, it's a sharply hit ground ball. He has plenty of time. See right there? See how he's starting to turn before he even catches the ball? Now watch him. He starts to turn right there. He's looking away. He wasn't even watching the ball. And, you know, I say that, but we've all done it. We're in a hurry to make plays, and you really do not have to be in a hurry.
His 9th error of the season has created a real problem here for Park and the Dodgers. As the bases are loaded for Stan Javier, there's nobody out. He is grounded out twice. Infield in at the corners. They'll come home. Double play depth at short and second. And it's foul back on the first pitch from Park. Strike one. 4 hits now for the Giants in the game.
Gagne made an error in last night's ball game that really helped the Giants break the game open. And so far tonight, the Shields has made one and has really put the Dodgers in a terrible position here.
Looking for the ground ball to get a play at the plate if they can. Popped up, no play. Behind home plate, and it's a 2-strike count now on Javier. Chan-Ho Park has 6 strikeouts in this game. He could use one right here.
And this is the type of situations where you and your catcher both know that you need a strikeout. So you have to really work together. And Piazza can feel probably where Javier is looking this pitch.
And Javier takes it inside. Really tied him up. Couldn't have hit it if he had swung, and he checked. He thought that might have been in. A ball and 2 strikes.
This is a good 0-2 pitch. I mean, I don't know how Javier takes that pitch. I mean, with 2 strikes, you just about have to swing at that. That was an excellent pitch thrown by Chan-Ho Park, and they call the ball.
A run is in. Wow. Dunston scores on the balk call against Park. Takes away the double play opportunity, moving runners to second and third with nobody out, and a 2-0 Giant lead.
Well, anytime a pitcher's on the rubber, you have to, be conscious of getting the sign and nothing else.
Third balk by Chan-Ho Park. Infield again in at the corners here, even without the force play at the plate. A 2-ball, 2-strike count on Javier.
You can't be thinking about the runners while you're getting your sign. And that's what happened to him there. Runner at third base, Dunston moved, and it threw Park off balance.
Javier just 197 with runners in scoring position this year. Fights this off. You wonder, Joe, sometimes why in every game you see smart base runners in that situation jumping around.
Right.
That's why.
Well, if you can catch the pitcher's eye, and he's not really concentrating that way, and he sees you move, he immediately thinks of a squeeze situation, and he makes a movement.
Dunston, the man who scored from third. 2 balls, 2 strikes. 2 on. And that one grounded, and it's a base hit into left field. Runner coming to the plate, throw in by Hollingsworth, and the ball dropped, was in there anyway. So 2-run score as Williams and Bonds cross, and it is a 4-0 lead as the first 4 on here in the 6th inning have scored. 2 RBIs will be credited to Javier, and he gets the 2 RBIs on a single.
Well, it seemed to me that Chan-Ho Park lost his concentration when Bernard hit the home run on the first pitch he threw this inning. This is a nice attempt by Gagnon to keep the ball on the infield. Now Hollingsworth comes up firing. And watch this, Barry Bonds does not slide. You see Matt Williams telling him to get down, but he does not get down. The ball actually hits him. See, he does not slide. The ball hits him and stays right at home plate, which is fortunate for the Dodgers. But Matt Williams was telling him to slide. And anytime a ball is coming towards a plate and you're running, you're supposed to slide.
Didn't do it, but scored anyway. 4 runs are in here in the inning. Scott Radinsky will be coming on to replace Chan-Ho Park. Numbers on Radinsky. Who can bring it?
He can bring it, and this is a good story we need to talk about a little later.
Nobody out. Runner goes. Hit, run on. Line drive center field. Hauled in. Fonville's got a chance for the double play at first base. Karros gets to the bag in time. And Javier's out. So McCarty lining to center field, and Fonville with a runner going got it back to first in time to double him up.
Well, Javier takes off, but apparently he doesn't know where the ball is. He did not, on a hit and run, you're supposed to look to see where the ball is hit. He doesn't know where this ball is, and he continues to run to second base. Now, once Fonville catches the ball, then he turns and starts to run back. And you can see it's not even close at first base. Throw way off line, but they're in plenty of time. And see, you can see right there Javier getting to second base just before the ball was caught. You have to know where the ball is on a hit and run.
So that'll be 2 down in a hurry. 1 pitch. Robbie Thompson, who's 0 for 2. Bernard started this inning off with a home run, his second. Dunston drew the walk. Williams had a single. Bonds reached on the error. The balk brought in a run, and then Javier with a 2 RBI single has given the Giants 4 runs on 5 hits, and the runs all charged. Chan Ho Park, the starter, 4 runs, 3 earned on 5 hits. He walked 2 and struck out 6. And that will be his final line in this game for Park. Scott Rudensky with Thompson, 3-0 count, and he gets the strike in, 3-1. So the Giants, who lost the first 2 games of this series, 8-3 and 6-1, have now outscored Los Angeles 11-0 over the last 2 nights. Thompson fouls it back, and a chance to, rather incredibly, after the way they played in the first 2 games of this series, a chance to come out of this series 2-2.
Well, it's interesting. Dusty Baker said we need a well-pitched ball game. We need somebody to take the bull by the horn and come up with it. Last night, Estes did that. And now look at, Van Landingham has followed suit, and sometimes that becomes contagious on a pitching staff.
That one down the right field line by Thompson's going to be trouble. Mondesi over, will not have a play on it. Foul ball.
Barely foul. That's what happens when you're struggling. That ball is maybe less than a foot foul, but when you're hitting well, if you're hitting 300, that hits the chalk line.
Robbie Thompson has had 11 doubles, a triple, and 5 home runs for his extra base hits this season with that .217 batting average. Bases are empty for him here, through down, 3-2.
Now, Robbie Thompson hit this ball. If it lands fair, of course, it's going to be a base hit. And, it's just barely foul, because Mondesi had no chance of making the play. There's a better look at it. Let's see how far. Look at that. That's maybe 2 inches foul.
Ryan Gorman, first base umpire, down the line and right on it. 3-2 delivery again by Rudensky, and he's gone. Outside corner strike. When it's going for you, that's a ball. You wouldn't have needed it anyway, because the other one would have been a double. Bernard, who had the home run to start the inning, 4-0 Giants. Thorne, Joe Morgan, great to have you with us on our Sunday night baseball game of the week. Take a look at the Dodgers line. Notice under hits, none.
But they do have an error.
They do have an error. That's not a hit. Van Landingham has walked 1, struck out 2, 1 base runner. The last 3 starts for William Van Landingham have been not even remotely like this one.
But the reason, Gary, we talked about at the beginning of the telecast, he was not aggressive. He wasn't throwing strikes. And just take a look at tonight's line. 13 out of 16 first pitches are strikes now. And if you get ahead of the hitters, most of the hitters you will be able to get out. I said before, if pitchers didn't make mistakes, if they made good pitches all the time, there'd be a lot of no-hitters. Hitters would never get base hits.
That first strike.
And he does so again. Now he's 14 first strike pitches in this ball game.
Greg Gagne, who grounded out, leads it off. The pitcher due up next, and then Fonville. Scott Rudensky had come on in relief, the left-hander. Wayne Kirby has come out in the on-deck circle to pinch hit for Rudensky. We're in the bottom of the 6th inning. The Giants have a 4-0 lead. And Gagne fouls it back. Osuna warming up in the bullpen, ready to come on for Los Angeles. Credit Rudensky with working that 1 inning. There's Kirby waiting on deck. Rudensky struck out 1, and the rest were zeros across for him, and the inning worked. And Landingham misses inside. The lone walk, the lone Dodger base runner. Mike Blowers walk in the 2nd inning. That's it. Had half fly balls, half ground balls, and Landingham has been in charge. 1-2 to short. Sean Dunston comes it over. Gagne's retired, 1 away in the 6th inning. Crowd very quiet here as the Dodger fans have had nothing to cheer about here in this one.
You see, look how many strikes to ball, his ball strike ratio, 44 strikes, 17 balls.
The announcement on Wayne Kirby coming on as the pinch hitter. One down and the base is empty. Opposition hitting .285 total against Van Landingham coming into this game. Kirby takes that breaking ball and it's in for a strike. Kirby this season as a pinch hitter, 2 for 9. And Landingham misses outside with it. 1 ball, 1 strike. Coaches were saying for the Giants, Joe, that one of the problems Van Landingham has had is when he has to work out of the stretch. It's much tougher for him in the stretch to throw strikes than it is when he's working out of the windup because of what we've talked about, this motion he has coming towards third base.
So he eliminates that.
Just don't put anybody on.
Yeah, he
eliminate the problem.
Yeah. There's Dick Pohl. He is the Giants pitching coach, and the fact that they signed Dusty Baker to a 2-year extension, there's been some question about maybe the coaching staff and, maybe Dick Pohl as a pitching coach. So, you're going to have to watch that situation closely for the remainder of the season.
1 ball, 2 strike count. Big Kirby to hit the other way, and he does. Third base side, Matt Williams. Dodger Stadium can be a pitcher's best friend in these situations. Estes, who had the start last night, got the win. Tremendous 3-hitter over 7 innings.
Center fielder.
Struck out 11 and walked 3. I was talking with him before the game. He said, you looked pretty calm out there last night. He said, well, after I got by the first inning, the butterflies went away, and I didn't hear the 54,000 who were here.
The unfortunate thing for the Giants, if you want to look at it that way, is that now if they've had 2 well-pitched games back-to-back, now they have to go to Colorado.
Yeah. Where nobody wants to pitch.
The ball?
Everybody's got a sore arm. 2 down and nobody on. And a strike taken by Fonville, who's 0 for 2. He has grounded out and flied out. Just 3 hits in his last 21 at-bats. Now that average down.
You can pitch well in Colorado and still not get the victory.
Mercy. 0-1 pitch. Part of the home run derby. Hit so many of the other yards in baseball, Joe. There you see the first pitch strike situation Joe was talking about. So many parks, even Dodger Stadium. They have fences. It's shorter. Fences haven't been moved in. The plate's been moved out. 1-1 pitch up high. The home plate area here at Dodger Stadium used to be 10 feet further back towards the backstop. So you had about a 4 or 10 poke to straightaway center field. That also means that the fans are now further away from the field here at Dodger Stadium than they used to be. And it's expanded that foul territory we were talking about. Fonville fights it off. 2 balls and 2 strikes. It is quite the view, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. This is a beautiful ballpark. But there is a lot of foul territory. Cost hitters a lot of at-bats here.
Yep. Right down between home and third, home and first in particular. 2-2 off the fist. Dunston makes the play. Fonville's retired, and so are the Dodgers. And William Van Landingham has not given up a hit through the first 6 innings. Here in Los Angeles, they were once the dominant Olympic team in the world, but now life and athletes have changed in Russia. Thursday at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, Outside the Lines takes an inside look at sports in Russia. That's Outside the Lines, Thursday, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Antonio Suda is the new pitcher. You see the 41st game he will be working in here. A couple of saves. He is a middle reliever. Very good hit to innings pitched ratio.
And he throws real hard. Dodgers have a lot of good arms in that bullpen, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, these guys can throw.
Your attention, please. Now pitching for the Dodgers.
Well, we have a moment we certainly want to recognize. Kirby Puckett.
In the air and makes the catch.
Charlie Leibrandt was the pitcher.
Back goes Keith Mitchell. It is gone. Home run Puckett.
Catcher.
And Charlie Leibrandt has turned the lights out in the Metrodome.
It was the game winner, and we are certainly sorry to see that that great career is coming to a conclusion way short of its time. Kirby Puckett, who the eye problems would not go away in the last examination. The one where they said not again.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, if you that was the best highlight you probably could have put together, showing Kirby Puckett. He was a great defensive player as well as a clutch hitter and all-around good guy. I mean, you know, he's going to be missed.
Game needs the Kirby Puckett's 1-0 pitch. Joe, you could probably identify him as well as any player around. I mean, the size-wise and what you did in the game, a lot like Kirby Puckett.
Well, I've had a lot of respect for him, you know, his entire career. And when you're around him, he's always got this great smile on him because he loved to play the game. I think that's what I remember most about Kirby. I mean, he just loved to play.
Lampkin's ground ball. Karros will take it himself.
Sometimes, you know, players will tell you that this is a job. It was never a job for Kirby Puckett. I mean, he always had fun. It reminds me of something Willie Stargell said to me once. He said, they never say work ball. You know, you go out, you say play ball. And that's the way Kirby Puckett took it. And he is going to be missed. I mean, I've missed him the entire season. Just not being able to pick up the newspaper and see what Kirby did today.
Yeah. Greg Gagne, you saw there, was a teammate of Kirby Puckett's. Gagne was playing the Twins. Van Landingham not getting a great hand here. San Francisco, they would be standing, but he's throwing his no-no in this game on the opposition's turf. Antonio Osuna coming on in relief here in the 7th inning, the third Dodger pitcher. He's got one down. Van Landingham has been a strikeout victim twice. It's the cut on the fastball there. 2 strikes on him.
There's Johnny B, Dusty Baker, and Sean Estes. In the jacket.
This team's got a 4-0 lead on their 5 hits. Strikeout number 1. Osuna gets the strikeout against Van Landingham. There are 2 down here in the 7th inning. Leadoff batter's done some damage in this game. Myron Bernard. He's had a couple of hits in the first hit of the ball game. And this one in the 6th.
And I still believe that the fact that Park was never able to recover after that first pitch. I think he was just trying to throw a strike to get ahead of Bernard in the inning. And he hit it out of the ballpark, and I just don't think he ever righted himself after that. I think he was still struggling mentally because he ended up walking Sean Dunston. He gave up a base hit to Matt Williams. An error, of course, contributed by Delino DeShields, but then he gave up the base hit to Stan Javier. So I don't think he ever got over that first pitch he threw to Bernard.
Never got an out in the inning after Bernard came up with that home run.
And you see that a lot of times, Gary. Guy would give up a home run on a pitch that he didn't mean to throw it to that exact spot, and he never comes back that entire inning.
Just 2 home runs on the season, and both of them have come in this series. For Bernard, the center fielder. Batting .250 on the year now, 2 down, bases empty. Antonio Osuna brings that one in, and with 2 down here and nobody on, going to get the Giants out in order in the 7th inning.
That's what Dusty Baker's always afraid of, he said, with Bernard. He hit that ball out of the ballpark. That was a big home run hitter swing right there on the 1 ball, no strike pitch.
Osuna's pitch swung on and missed. The ball and 2 strikes.
Small guys usually hit home runs by accident. If you go up there trying to hit them, you're not going to hit them very often. Some big guys can go ahead and hit them. There's Tom Candiotti. He was scheduled to start this ball game for the Dodgers.
1-2 delivered. Just missed with that one. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Dodgers live and die by their pitching. Candiotti was ready to go. Got hit on the pitching arm with a pitch a week ago. It acted up on him as he warmed up for tonight's game. Candiotti unable to make the start. Park came on, charged 4 runs, 3 earned, and 5 hits over 5+ innings. Osuna, the third Dodger pitcher, working here as a 2-2 count.
So maybe next time he pitches, we'll follow your lead and let him put a batting practice screen in front of him. You let him pitch with a BP screen in front of him and he won't get hit anymore. Is that it?
I'm telling you.
Next time he pitches.
They are valuable commodities, Tom Candiotti, of this world.
I agree. But
And
so are the Barry Bonds and all the other players.
Well, they're supposed to hit and stand in there. The pitchers are. They don't get paid for that.
In my little league, the pitcher was always the best.
Little league, yeah. Well, of course, that's the way it is.
Well, somewhere along the line, we twisted this around. But, I mean, Barry Bonds is valuable, too.
That's right. But he's expected to play every day. The pitchers aren't.
Okay.
3 balls, 2 strikes. We'll do interleague play next time. Here's the 3-2 delivery, and swung on and missed. Osuna gets the strikeout. Van Landingham, who's not given up a hit, goes back to work. But he's got some bats coming up against him. Piazza and Gary Thorne, delighted to have you with us. We've got a no-hitter underway in this game.
Yeah, and it's a well-pitched ball game, actually, on both sides, Gary. I mean, again, Bernard's home run, I think, just shook Park up so much that he couldn't continue that inning. But he pitched very well also, and especially not knowing that he was going to start the ball game on short notice, just being run in there.
There's the line. Van Landingham, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. The Shields, Piazza, Karros due up against him. 26-year-old right-hander. Not had a win in his last 6. Last win June 3rd. Wants that W here and maybe a little more.
And another first pitch strike.
What a difference that makes in every baseball game.
Every pitching coach will tell you the best pitch in baseball is not the fastball or the curveball, but strike 1. The best pitch in baseball.
An 0-1 count on the Shields, who has grounded out twice. Fans getting into this now, just trying to help the Dodgers get a hit. Center field. Bernard moving over. Falls off Vaughn. Puts it away. And DeShields is retired. 1 away in the 7th inning.
Well, this is probably the toughest hitter, not only in the Dodger lineup, like you say, maybe in the National League. This is how he pitched him. Fastball or a breaking ball away, he grounded out. Fastball that he hit the center field, and Van Landingham was lucky there because he gave him a pitch to hit. And Piazza lined it hard to center field, but right at Bernard in center field. You cannot make mistakes with Piazza. You're going to have to either stay on the inside corner hard or you throw slow breaking stuff away. That's the way you have to pitch Piazza.
That fly ball, Joe, probably the hardest hit ball we've had in the game. Center field. He starts him with the off-speed pitch away. Strike 1.
Beautiful pitch right there. That off-speed pitch right on the outside corner. And you see, watch, Piazza's ahead of this pitch. That's what you want. Off-speed pitch, breaking ball. If he hits it, it's going to break down and away. If he hits it toward the end of the bat.
5 for 10 lifetime. Piazza against Van Landingham. Down to third, foul, and it's an 0-2 count.
Perfect pitching again on the outside corner with the breaking ball, inside corner with the fastball. Now he has he can do anything he wants right now because he's shown Piazza that he can throw both pitches for strikes. So Piazza has to try to protect the entire plate. He can't look for a ball away, and he can't look for a ball in. So we'll see what Van Landingham does with him here.
Well, baseball's fine moments. A no-hitter underway, and the league's leading hitter at the plate. Gets the ground ball to short. Dunston is up with it. Makes the long throw off the mark. Good stretch. And getting back to the bag, McCarty. Nice play. 2 down.
When they talk to you about 0-2 pitches, an 0-2 pitch should not be a strike, but it should be close enough that the hitter has to go for it. And the first pitch was a breaking ball right on the outside corner. Look at that. Right, perfectly thrown. Watch, look at his target. He hits the target again right there on the inside corner. Watch the target. Right there again off the plate. You can't pitch any better than that. And again, if pitchers made those types of pitches every time a hitter walks in the batter's box, you wouldn't get any hits.
And they haven't. And only 75 pitches to get it done. Eric Karros, 2 fly ball outs in the game. And there's another first strike.
Unbelievable.
Fly to right, fly to center. Karros 2 for 11 lifetime against Van Landingham.
Well, if any pitchers are watching this game wants to know how to pitch in the big leagues, throw strikes. Get ahead of the hitters.
Here's the 0-1 delivery. There's that breaking ball that just missed outside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
In the second inning,
Eric Karros, the opportunity as this one went down the right field line. It was curving over in the corner. Stan Javier had a long run and made a nice play. 1-1 pitch, and there it is again. That breaking ball has had some great movement down and away to these right-handers.
All right, but again, watch the catcher's target. This is how you measure how good a guy's pitcher control is. Watch him now. Watch the target. See if he hits it.
1-2.
Look at that. That's what you want. If you're going to miss badly. Don't miss with that pitch in the middle of the plate. Now watch this pitch. Watch the target. Look at the target right there. That's where you want it. He's throwing he has such good movement on his fastball tonight that even that pitch, even though it moved back over the plate, Karros could not get to it. And I think you have to give the catcher Lampkin a lot of credit for what is happening tonight as well, because he is making Van Landingham work. He's not found one groove and stayed with it. He's moving pitches in and out, up and down, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Tom Lampkin behind the plate. The 2-2 delivery on the way, and he misses down low. 3-2.
But you're also getting to the point in the game, Gary, where, with a 4-run lead, where you can make sure that if I miss, I'm not going to miss in the middle of the plate.
This is only the second batter that Van Landingham has had more than 2 balls on him in the count. Struck him out. Went after it, and Lampkin picked it up, and that's the 3rd K for Van Landingham. We have completed 7. The Dodgers still do not have a hit. Eric Karros retired there. 4-0 Giants. Giants. Misses outside. 1 ball, 1 strike. There is Van Landingham. Usually not a lot of guys come around you when those are the numbers you're putting up. They tend to just leave you alone over there on the bench. 1-1. Down the first baseline, foul. Dunston drew a walk in the 6th inning and then scored on the balk by Chan-Ho Park. 3rd balk Chan-Ho Park had committed, and the 14th balk by the Dodgers pitching staff. They are more than double in balks to the team closest to them in that unworthy department this year, and it cost a run in that 6th inning. A 1-2 count here. Outfield straight away on Sean Dunston. Guthrie's fastball catches the outside corner, and Dunston knew it. 1 away.
And that's 3 strikeouts for Dunston in this ball game. The last 2 coming on call 3rd strikes. Well, you see Piazza set up on the outside corner, and that ball gets the outside corner.
3rd baseman.
Dunston does not argue.
9. Matt Williams.
16 strikeouts now in the last 15 innings pitched for Mark Guthrie. He will face Williams, who delivered a single and continued his hit streak. He's hit successfully now in the last 6. 304 batting average for him. Also has popped out and struck out in this game. Guthrie puts that one on the inside part of the plate, gets the strike.
You know, you were saying that Barry Bonds is supposed to play. Well, he's played 320 consecutive games, which ties a record set by Will Clark. Will Clark played 320 consecutive games for the Giants from 87 to 89, and Barry Bonds ties that record tonight. So he does play every day.
He does. Second only to Ripken.
Yeah, second to Ripken. He's only got 13 more years to go, I guess, to pass him.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Might not make that.
No, I don't think he'll make it.
I think he'll get to that one. Williams with a 1 ball, 1 strike count on him. Matt hitting .324 off left-handers this year. That one off the fist, shallow center field. Fonville coming, drops it. He got there, but he dropped it.
Well, that's the inexperience of Fonville as a center fielder, although he's played a lot of games there lately for the Dodgers. I mean, he is an infielder by trade, and he probably got on his heels at the last second, and the ball was just bouncing around in the air. If you don't run on your toes when you're coming after a fly ball, the ball starts to bounce on you in the air. It seems like it anyway. And an infielder sometimes will get on his heels to stop himself. Now, he starts to stop right there, and he's hitting right on his heels right there. You can see it. And that's, you have to run on your toes as an outfielder, and he starts to hit his heels the last 4 or 5 steps. And an infielder uses that to slow down.
It'll be an error, the second committed by the Dodgers in this game. Runner at first base now for Bonds, who hits one to right field. Got under it just a little bit. Mondesi is there and will put it away. Bonds did not miss by much on that one. 2 down.
Well, Barry Bonds is such a great hitter. I mean, you can see he's grimacing on this. But what Barry Bonds does, he wants to get a pitch that he can drive. And, I mean, right there, he gets the pitch. If there's anything he did wrong there, he may have opened up just a hair too quickly, and that made his bat drag a little bit, and he got under it rather than hitting it square. But he says, I just missed it.
He knows.
Yeah.
2 down. as Guthrie. Runner on at first base will face Javier. Big 2 RBI single in the 6th inning for Javier. 273 average now and 22 RBIs driven in for him. 4-0 Giant lead. We're in the 8th inning. 2 down. Runner at first base being held over there. Matt Williams walking the lead off. Guthrie will step off on this one with a 1-0 count. Giants trying to make it 2 in a row after getting out of the 7-game losing streak last night. 4-0 lead here. Runner goes. 1-0 pitch. Throw down by Piazza, nowhere near in time, and that's what we were talking about, Joe.
Yeah.
Running on the pitcher.
That was definitely a stolen base on Guthrie. Matt Williams took off with his first movement toward the plate, and he has a big leg kick, slow delivery, and no chance for Piazza. Now watch, first movement, there he goes. He's not reading him. He's just going on the first move. Now Piazza comes up and throws, but look at DeShields. He just comes up in front of the plate. No chance for Piazza to throw him out there.
First stolen base of the year for Matt Williams. The 1-1 pitch misses down low. 2 balls and 1 strike. Williams has his 29th Major League stolen base. Van Landingham waiting to face Mondesi, Blowers, and Hollinsworth due up for the Dodgers in the bottom half of the inning. We're in the 8th. 2-1 count. Towards short. And bobble momentarily. Gagne's throw is not going to be in time. Another Dodger error. So Javier is on. Greg Gagne bobbled it. Williams moves over to third. 2 errors in this inning. 3 in the game for the Dodgers.
Well, the Dodgers have been having a lot of defensive problems the last couple of years. They got Gagne to show up the shortstop position. And he actually charges the ball. If there's anything you want to criticize him for there, you say he didn't catch the ball out in front of him. But, I mean, it's just one of those situations where he bobbled it. I mean, you know, you really no real reason for it. He charged the ball.
Just in case. Bautista's going to be ready in the bullpen. Van Landingham needs help. Right now, he doesn't.
Yeah, but he's only had 1 complete game in his 48 career start, so he has not gone 9 innings too often, as you can
see. 2 down here. Runners on at first and third. And McCarty's up. Not giving up a hit in this game. And Landingham wouldn't mind having a couple more runs put up on the board for him here. McCarty hit into a double play his last time up. Has had a single, 1 for 3. Williams at third base. Javier on at first. Guthrie the long look. Gets the overhand fastball in for a strike. McCarty checking at third base here to see whether or not with 2 down here in the 8th inning and a 4-0 lead for the Giants. Something might be on with Javier on at first base. Guthrie with Karros holding at first. 0-1, missed way outside with it. 1 ball, 1 strike.
And Guthrie thought something was on too because he used the slide step. He did not give the high leg kick that he gave when Matt Williams stole the bag.
There's Matt Williams, who had that stolen base at third, and Javier at first, reaching, and they both reached on errors here this inning. Guthrie will make the throw over. The step-offs and the throws to first or any other bag by the pitcher are called from the dugout. Joe Amalfitano is the man who handles that for the Dodgers. He makes the calls, gives it to the catcher, Mike Piazza, and Piazza relays it out if they want to step off or throw to the bag. 1-1 the count. You saw Piazza, the apparent sign for it is the closed fist for a throw to the bag, by the looks of what Piazza did that last time. Remains 1-1. Dodgers do not want to give up any more here with 2 down. Inside fastball this time. Here's the 1-1 inside, but he missed the corner, and it's 2 balls and 1 strike. Sparky used to do that from the dugout on pitchers. Did he call the throwovers and that?
I don't think so. No. What do you mean?
You don't think so? You were playing second base.
Well,
he was supposed to know that stuff.
Hey, Gary, he didn't tell me to pitch out.
The delivery's chopped foul at the plate, 2-2.
He may have told Johnny Bench, but he didn't tell me to pitch out.
I thought you guys communicated with all that open mouth, closed mouth stuff.
No, he didn't. Actually, no. John called pitch outs. John controlled the game from behind the plate, which is the way I think it should be. You get a feel for when you're standing out there, when you're sitting there. I don't see how you can have someone call pitches, for a catcher, because the catcher can see if the hitter moves in the batter's box, see if he's leaning one way or the other, and you can't see that from the dugout.
Dodgers do not call the pitches. That's Piazza's decision along the pitcher. They do, however, make the moves to the bags and step-offs.
Well, there are a lot of teams that do that.
Yeah, I think everybody does.
Yeah, nowadays. I mean, a lot of teams will do that. And I'm sure that on certain occasions, if they thought they had a sign or whatever, they would tell, John to pitch out or something like that. I think that's where it really started. People thinking that they had picked up a sign from the third base coach.
2-ball, 2-strike count here. Fake throw over this time.
This has become a real rain delay situation here with Guthrie. Since Matt Williams stole that bag, he is so concerned with the runner at first base, he's almost forgetting about the hitter.
And he's got 2 down. Javier's that base runner at first. 14 stolen bases. McCarty enduring this from the plate. 2-2. And he fouls it off. He keeps battling away here in the inside pitches, and it remains a 2-2 count. Remember, Van Landingham here is sitting and watching all of this here in the 8th inning. You never know whether it's a rest that will help a pitcher who's on the roll he's on, or if it's a little too long.
Good point. I think everyone handles things differently. Sometimes you want to get right back out there. At other times you just want to take time to relax.
Yep.
So I think it just depends on his personality.
Pretty happy over there that time. Here's the 2-2 with the runner going, and again McCarty able to foul the pitch off and keep his at-bat alive. 4-0 lead. Giants are on top. We're in the top of the 8th inning. A couple of errors to put Williams on at third, Javier on at first with 2 away. And McCarty trying to add to that 4-0 Giant lead. 4 runs, 5 hits in this game for the Giants. Chan-Ho Park, who started an emergency starter, gave up the 4 runs, 3 of them earned on 5 hits over 5+ innings. Radinsky, Antonio Osuna, and now Mark Guthrie have all been on out of the Dodger bullpen in this game. McCarty still has a 2-2 count on him. Javier not going, and it's grounded to third base. Flowers over to get it. Got a long throw, and it's not in time. Carroll's tried to help by coming off that bag, but it'll be an infield single scoring Williams, and it is a 5-0 Giant lead.
Good hustle down the line by McCarty. He didn't wait to look at the ball. But you see Flowers comes in to watch. He takes a little too much time right there to fire to first base. But very close play at first base. In fact, it looked like to me that he was out. But obviously, I had to replay in slow motion.
Credit the RBI to McCarty. Now runners at first and second base. Thompson. Forced play at second. That was close, but they get it. Gagne to DeShields. Taking Javier out. Van Landingham will be coming out with a 5-0 lead to try and continue the no-hitter. Continue it for 6 more outs. Williams, Van Landingham.
Let's take a look at that last play. The next to last play of the inning. Look at Dave McCarty. Now watch when the ball gets into Carlos's glove. He has the ball, and he hasn't touched the bag yet. Look at that. I mean, but that's a very, very, very close play, because the umpire has to go on the sound of the ball hitting the glove and watches for the runner's foot to hit the bag. So, with the replay, obviously, we can slow it down to milliseconds, and he doesn't have the opportunity to do that.
Joe, I think on that play, Karros actually thought the runner was going to be safe and may have actually hurt himself by coming off the bag as quickly as he did.
But he was definitely on when the ball got there.
Yeah, he had it. Here we go. Swung on and a base hit. There goes the no-hitter as Raul Mondesi goes after the first pitch in the 8th inning. And the Dodgers have their first hit of the game.
And we talked about him being a bad ball hitter. This is a bad ball, but it's a hanging breaking ball. And hanging breaking balls are usually pitches that you can hit. Now watch, this is a breaking ball. See it spinning, and that's all it's doing is spinning. That's why it did not break. And that's why he was able to hit it. It was just a spinning breaking ball, which becomes a mediocre fastball. And there you see Van Landingham. I mean, he's not reacting very much simply because, hey, he wants to win a ball game. He has not won since June 3rd, so his whole purpose for going out here tonight was to win a ball game, not to pitch a no-hitter. That was just kind of a second thought. Now he just wants to win this ball game.
So the Dodgers with their second base runner of the game. And Mike Flowers was the other who drew a walk in the 2nd inning.
Now that pitch there, Mondesi doesn't hit. But see, the one he threw was just a spinning breaking ball, and sometimes that's the first pitch of the inning, and maybe his concentration wasn't all there or whatever, but that was the first pitch of the inning that he threw, and Mondesi jumped on it.
Nobody out, runner at first base, and the fastball misses inside. Van Landingham worked against Florida back on April 28th in a game where he worked 7 innings and gave up only a run on 2 hits. His best performance of the year. Dusty Baker, though, has got to be very happy about what he has seen over the last 2 nights. In this case, now Van Landingham. Van Landingham came into this year with a 14-5 record over his first 2 seasons. As Joe mentioned at the top, they were hoping they might have a 15-game winner out of him this year, and it just hasn't worked out yet. 4-9, and look at that ERA compared to his first 2 seasons.
But I tell you what, again, the Giants have gotten 2 well-pitched ball games, but they have to go to Colorado. And the best pitching staffs in the league, the Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves, have taken their lumps in Colorado this year. Everybody.
1-2 count here. Mike Flowers goes after it towards the hole, and he's got a base hit. So the first 2 Dodgers in the 8th inning are going to make it interesting. 2 on and nobody out.
I don't think you're going to see Dusty Baker stay with Van Landingham too long, simply because he has not pitched with 1 complete game in his 48 starts. So you're not going to see him stay with him too long, especially in a ball game where the Giants feel like they have to win. You know, they won last night. They want to get on a roll. So you're going to see Van Landingham give him maybe 1 or 2 more hitters, but he's not going to stay too long with him here.
Jim Poole, newly acquired, and Mark Dewey are up in the bullpen. Interesting that Van Landingham, the complete game, the only one he's had was a loss here at Dodger Stadium last year, 3-2. He's got a 5-0 lead here with the Dodgers going at it here in the 8th inning. That one grounded. Thompson's got it. Dunston 1, relay to first, and they turn 2 on Todd Hollinsworth. Mondesi moves over to third base, but a big ground ball out for Van Landingham. 4-6-3-2 down.
And no one makes this play better than Robbie Thompson. I mean, over the years, I mean, he has been one of the best. Now watch the difference between he and what we saw from DeShields. He waited for the ball, caught the ball, then made his turn. We saw DeShields try to turn too quickly. Now watch the difference here. We'll see Robbie Thompson. He will catch the ball first. Watch right here. Catches it. Now he turns and throws to second base. And remember, we saw DeShields try to throw, turn and throw at the same time, and he made an error. So that's the way you're supposed to make it. You have to catch the ball first.
Gagne gets the RBI chance with 2 down and a runner at third base. That sweeping breaking ball. Missing, ball 1. 2 hits for the Dodgers here in the inning, breaking up the no-hitter, but they are not on the board. And that double play possibly taking care of what could have been a big inning. And maybe giving Van Landingham a longer life in this game.
I really believe that if he gets out of this inning, you may have seen the last of Van Landingham. You know, if he gives up a couple more hits, they're going to take him out now. But I think Dusty Baker is very pleased, as you said, with what he saw. And the last thing you want to do is end the start on a negative note. Good point. You know, by him giving up a couple more base hits and maybe giving up a few runs. If he can get out of this inning, I think that's probably enough.
So deliveries way outside, and he falls behind 3 balls and no strikes on Gagne.
And on top of that, he's the second hitter in the 9th inning as well, and I'm sure Dusty may want to try to get some more runs.
Leadoff batter Raul Mondesi broke up the no-hitter with a single. He's on at third base. Pitcher due up next, but Dave Hansen's already out in the on-deck circle. Trio pitch is outside, and Landingham's second walk of the game. It's dangerous territory here, even with a 5-run lead.
Oh, you're right, because what you've done now is you've put yourself in a situation where you have to face Piazza in the 9th inning. If he could have gotten out of this inning, you know, without leaving, leaving 1 runner on base, Piazza would not have hit again. Now he cinches an opportunity for Piazza to hit because this is the 9th slot, so the first 3 hitters in the lineup will hit in the top of the 9th.
Hansen has gone 5 for 26 as a pinch hitter and 1 pinch hit RBI. Dave Hansen stands in here with runners on at first and third, conferencing at the mound. And they're conferencing to give the bullpen a couple of extra throws. As Dusty Baker's on his way up.
I think we're going to see Jim Poole right here. And I think this, again, is a wise move, in my opinion, for Dusty Baker to make because he's gotten everything positive out of Van Landingham tonight. So you do not want to leave him, again, on a bad note. So this is the right time to do it.
Great performance.
But he wants to, ask Van Landingham, how do you feel? I mean, he wants to give him that opportunity because he has pitched he has pitched well tonight, and he just does not want to walk out and take him out like he does when he doesn't pitch well.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he'll make the change right here for Van Landingham, a no-hitter going into the 8th inning. He works 7 2/3, gives up 2 hits, walks 2, strikes out 3. A magnificent performance for the 26-year-old right-hander.
Baker showed his appreciation. Normally when you go to the mound, you take the ball from a pitcher, you pat him on the back, say nice job. But watch the gesture that Dusty Baker makes here after he calls in Jim Poole. I mean, he takes the ball, then he stands there and shakes his hand. How many times have you seen that before? I think that's really a show of appreciation for what he did here tonight. And I think it's well-deserved because normally you just pat a guy on the back, say, nice going, man. But he shook his hand, and I think that was special.
Dusty's on his way back out towards home plate umpire Randy Marsh. There's the line. He's responsible for the base runners on with 2 down.
Well, what Dusty wanted to do is go out to make sure that they had announced Hansen. He thought he did. That's why he went and made the move. But he wanted to make sure that Hansen is out of the ball game now that Billy Ashley is in. He was making sure that he didn't prematurely take Van Landingham out before they had announced Hansen.
See, Jim Poole acquired from the Indians in the carry-on deal. Raul Mondesi's on at third. Gagne is on at first. There are 2 down. A 5-0 lead for the Giants, and Billy Ashley is going to be the pinch hitter as Hansen was announced but never got to the plate. Ashley's 2 for 13 with a couple of pinch hit RBIs.
He's also 4 for his last 52.
Ouch.
I mean, that's, look at that. That's 4 hits in his last 52 at-bats. That's struggling.
Poole made his debut Thursday here in L.A. He worked the 7th inning, scoreless, a walk and a strikeout. Mark Carrion going the other way from the Giants. The Cleveland Indians for the 30-year-old veteran. Poole, the left-hander, good breaking ball and a fastball. Dusty Baker making the decision here, wanting him in here to get Hansen out of there and make the change, forcing Ashley to come to the plate. 2 on. Poole misses outside. He falls behind here. 3 balls and no strikes.
Well, maybe they should have told Poole that he's 4 for his last 52.
Doesn't want to run back out there.
Yeah, he's been a little careful here with a guy who is not swinging the bat well.
3-0 count. Way out of the strike zone. And the red light is blinking right now in the Giant dugout. This is danger territory, even though it's a 5-0 lead. The bases are loaded. Van Landingham waiting to see what happens here in this half of the 8th inning.
And it looks like they're going to call Chad Fonville back as well. We've got Bill Russell pulling out all the stops here. Roger Cedeno looks like.
Here comes Cedeno.
Your attention, please.
Well, the left-hander
For the
brought on
Dodgers.
by Dusty Baker,
Now batting for
creating the
Fonville.
activity. Bonneville has gone 0 for 3 in the ball game. That double play picked up by Van Landingham off Todd Hollinsworth looms very large here in the 8th inning, the way things are going. Cedeno has not had a hit in his last 20 at-bats, 0 for 20. Has had a walk in each of the last 3 games that he has appeared in. Mark Dewey was throwing in the bullpen when Poole got up. He is still there for the Giants. So the bases are loaded. Mondesi broke up the no-hitter with a single. The walk to Gagne put him on. He's at second, and now the walk to Ashley puts him on at first. Bases loaded, 2 down, 8th inning. And Cedeno, the pinch hitter, working against Poole, who will continue out of the stretch. And he misses outside. Poole on the right to pitching coach. Whispering, throw strikes, throw strikes. Cedeno, the 1-0. He gets that one in there. Poole evens the count up with a ball and a strike.
Well, Poole may have been whispering throw strikes, but Dusty Baker was yelling throw strikes. I mean, a grand slam here doesn't tie the ball game, but if you walk a guy and then someone hits a grand slam, you're tied.
1-1 count. Roger Cedeno waiting. The breaking ball buckled his knees. Poole has an outstanding curveball. 1-2. His numbers when he's had the opportunity this season. Poole ready. Here's the 1-2 delivery. Breaking ball, and he got him. Strike 3 on the swing, and that'll end the inning. The Dodgers break up the no-hitter, but they do not push a run across. We have completed 8. Van Landingham a chance to win it with a 5-0 lead.
Today, 5th inning, game tied at 1, and holy cow, Messer, they're going to lay down the squeeze bunt. It's Joe Girardi who lays it down. Here comes Darryl Strawberry. Nice try by Scott Erickson, but to no avail. Yanks win 4-1. They are up 10 out east.
Well, Orioles said if we can just win 3 out of the 4, we'll be in good shape, and they were right. ESPN Wednesday night, you'll see the red-hot New York Yankees, Darryl Strawberry and company, and Mo Vaughn and the Red Sox, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Our second half of our doubleheader, the Padres will be taking on the Dodgers. Caminiti and the Padres, Piazza and the Dodgers, big series for the Western Division race. What a weekend for the New York Yankees, though. That is enormous. This is Poole working his way out to preserve the shutout through 8 innings with a great breaking ball, that curveball he throws, and Van Landingham was waiting on the bench to see how the inning would end before he departed to the clubhouse. Good job. And the Dodger pitcher will be the 5th that we have seen in this game. Joey Eishen coming on. 25th appearance for him. More hits than innings pitched. A few strikeouts for him, though.
One thing about everyone they bring out of the bullpen, they strike a lot of hitters out.
They do, don't they? Cedeno stays in. He pinch hit for Fonville, the center fielder, so he'll stay in center field. And the Giants come up in the 9th inning with a 5-0 lead, having out-hit the Dodgers 6-2. They will have Lampkin, then the pitcher due up, and then the top of the order, Bernard. Steve Scarsoni's come out on deck to pinch hit for Poole. For Lampkin in the game, he has gone 0 for 3. 1 unearned run has been scored in this game by the Giants. That coming in the 8th inning. See ya. Lampkin goes down to first.
Well, if you're going to take one in the back, you'd like for it to be a breaking ball. And you can see here, there's a breaking ball that starts behind him and hits him right in the middle of the back.
Your attention, please.
Not much doubt about that, was there?
No, not much doubt there.
Couldn't aim better to get it in the middle.
Yeah.
Steve Scarsoni. Scarsoni, a pinch hitter here, as Poole came on and got the job done. A strikeout in a walk in the 3rd of an inning. Left the Dodgers with the bases loaded in that 8th inning. Scarsone, 239 overall, takes the first pitch at the knees for a strike.
Scarsone has been a very good player for the Giants over the years because, I mean, he fills in a lot of different places, swings a good bat. He's done a lot of good things for the Giants. Very valuable player to have on your ball club.
The creek in the bullpen for the Giants, ready to come on the bottom half of the 9th inning. Scarsone 1 for 8 as a pinch hitter. And the breaking ball missed inside. 1 ball and 1 strike. Well, the Giants with a chance to gain a game, 8.5 out in last place behind the Dodgers, who are leading it. Dusty Baker's team battling back here after that horrendous streak. They just couldn't do anything right and had lost 7 in a row. Now with a chance to have back-to-back wins against the Dodgers. Throw over, very close to a balk right there. Should have that front foot headed to the plate. There you see the standings here. San Diego losing today, Colorado winning. The rest will depend on this game. 1-1 the count. Runner goes, hit and run, perfectly positioned into right field. Good job of hitting. Throw coming to third from Mondesi with that great arm will not be in time. So Lampkin on his way over. Pinch hit delivered by Scarsone, puts runners on at first and third with nobody out in the 9th inning.
Good hitting here by Scarsone and good baseball by Dusty Baker, putting the runner in motion. You see DeShields went over to cover. The whole right side is open. Mondesi fires to third base. Offline a little bit, but he would not have gotten Lampkin anyway. Perfectly placed hit and run.
Well, the Giants trying to add to their 5-0 lead. 7 hits now. And it'll be the top of the order. Bernard right now is the game-winning RBI. His home run in the 6th inning was the first run of the game. 2 home runs on the season and a couple of hits here in this one, raising that average to 258. Takes the left-hander's pitch down low. Runners at first and third. Remember, the Dodgers were shut out in last night's game, 7-0. They have been shut out here, 5-0, and have only one more at-bat coming. And a line drive out of the reach of Gagne into left center field. Collinsworth over, run will score. Runner back to second base in a hurry, Scarsone. RBI single, Bernard, who's had himself a game here on this Sunday.
Good hitting by Bernard. This is what he does best. He just slaps the ball around. And he hits the line drive to left field for a base hit. Now watch, this is right there. He just kind of slaps the ball around, but good level swing here. See how level his bat is as it goes through the hitting zone. And he hits a line drive like that. Wade Boggs' bat is like that every time he goes through the hitting zone almost. He very rarely pops up. Good play there by Hollingsworth, throwing behind Scarsone.
2 RBIs in the game for Bernard, and Bill Russell can only watch as the score goes to 6-0 now. Sean Dunston, the 0 for 3 in this ball game, did pick up a walk and scored in the 6th inning. And the Giants got 4 of their 6 runs. His pitch is fouled back. First and second occupied now.
It was interesting when Van Landingham was still going for the no-hitter to see the last Giants pitcher to pitch a no-hitter, and it was John the Count of Montefiusco in September of '76 against the Atlanta Braves.
It's a long time.
And the Count was something, wasn't he?
He was. 0-1 pitch taken up high. Even if he didn't throw the ball, he was fun to watch.
You're right.
1 ball, 1 strike. Nobody out here in a 1-1 count. Giants have waited so long to finally get in games where they are winning and are hitting the ball. They don't want to let it go here, even though it's the 9th inning. Fouled off. 1-2. Scarsone's on at second. Bernard on at first base. Both have had singles.
Gary, I got to tell you my favorite Count of Montefiusco story. We were playing in Cincinnati once. The Giants were in town, and Pete Rose and myself, we were not playing. We're standing around the batting cage. He said, "You guys not playing?" He said, "I think I'll pitch a no-hitter." By the 2nd inning, he was gone. Bench had hit one of the longest home runs ever in Riverfront Station with 2 men on, and Perez had hit one even farther. But you know what? He laughed about it.
He would always do that, wouldn't he? Nice catch made by DeShields over the shoulder to get Sean Dunston for the first out in the 9th inning.
And as he's walking off the mound, the fans booed him. And afterwards he said in the paper, he said, they don't have a sense of humor. No respect. He was a character. I really liked him. I mean, he made baseball fun, guys like that.
I always think of Grabowski when I think of